गजवदना करुणा सदना शङ्कर बालालम्बोदर सुन्दर गजवदना करुणा सदना शङ्कर बालालम्बोदर सुन्दर गजवदना करुणा सदना अजनमरेन्द्रनुं मुनिवरुं पनियूं अजनमरेन्द्रनुं मुनिवरुं पनियूं पङ्कजचरणा शरणं शरणं श्रीगजवदना करुणा सदना நீயே மூவுலகிற்காதாரம் நீயே சிவாகம் மந்திரசாரம் நீயே வாழ்வின் ஜீவாதாரம் நீ அருள்வாய் சுமுகா ஓம்காரா கஜவதனா करुणा सदना शङ्कर बालालम्बोदर सुन्दर गजवदना करुणा सदना Thank you, sir.
Unmute yourself, sir.
Thanks, Abhinaya. Abhinaya, you can switch on your video. Yeah. Today, welcome everyone for the second event of Viewpoints Club. We just started this for sharing knowledge. That's the idea of objective of this club. We have three panelists here for the discussion today. Today, I'm going to give a very brief introduction of all the panelists. For saving time, please don't mistake me. But that doesn't mean anything less of them. They are all achieved and excelled in their own field. You'll be knowing everybody and automatically. All the profiles are, full profiles are available at the website, at our website, viewpoints.club. So you can check on that later on. First, I'll introduce Dr. Nappinai. Dr. Nappinai Saran is a PhD in psychologist with a rich experience in handling patients with psychological issues. She specializes in marital therapy. She believes rehabilitation is the key to an inclusive society. She works for medical and other colleges. She holds prestigious position for various organizations as well. Please go through her work at the viewpoints.club website and our own website for all the details about her. Next, we'll introduce Bhavani Shankar, PhD. Doctor, no need for introduction. He's a well-known person. He's a senior principal of Lalaji Memorial Omega International School now. Bhavani Shankar is a passionate and experienced educationist with a proven track record of success, working across organizations engaged in academic research, post-secondary and K-12 education. An accomplished academic with research and management qualifications, teaching and training certification, and keen leadership capabilities. He brings with him strategic skill to seed nature and manage the change continuum in education. There are a lot more to talk about him, but due to paucity of time, I'm cutting short. I'm sorry, sir. Next comes Divya. Divya, where are you? I'm sorry.
Hello, yeah, I think now it's wrong.
I forgot to do the spotting for others too, right? Divya Swarnaraj is an young engineer, entrepreneur, and tech futurist. She's really a whiz kid to everybody. She was one of the 3 Indians to be selected to study future technology at NASA Ames, California When was that? 2000?
2012. 2012.
She is a successful entrepreneur. I'd like to repeat that. Creating companies all over the world. In fact, she baffles me with the knowledge in every subject I converse with her, be it electronics, electrical, mechanical engineering, software, psychology, and so on. I don't know where she's got so much time to understand everything. All the best in your life, and thanks for accepting to be here and sharing your knowledge, Hannah. Okay. Now, co-moderator Swapna Nair, she's with me. Let me spotlight her. Excuse me, please. Okay. She's Swapna Nair. She's my co-moderator and future panelist too. She is an experienced guidance counselor and transformative coach with a demonstrated history of working in the professional training and counseling and coaching industry. I could go on and go on and on. I'm talking about all the experts, but due to the paucity of time, let us head into the discussion directly. Most of the points I've already told. The objective of creating this club Viewpoint was to share knowledge by way of panel discussion. I mean panel discussion instead of in normal lecture by experts in their respective fields. As a start, we are planning to have one meeting every month and slowly increase the frequency. We kindly request you to keep an eye on the website and social media about our future topics. At the end of this event, don't miss summation and vote of thanks, which will be given by our committee member, Jnaneshwar, a business professional and a social activist. We have here Mr. Meyyappan, who is my co-founder of Viewpoints Club. Our club. He is a scientist in Johns Hopkins. I don't know, where is he? This is Meyyappan. It's early morning there in Johns Hopkins, Baltimore. He's come here for being with us today. Thanks, Meyyappan. And I have a lot of other friends and a lot of, not only my friends, known people are here, the dignitaries are there. Let's have a nice informative sharing of knowledge today. As a first question, I'll ask Napinai Madam, a simple question. Madam, I'll replace it. Sorry for my Napinai Madam. Madam, maturity, I mean, as a psychologist, you can answer, you can do different things. I'll ask a simple question. Maturity is very subjective. What is maturity of mind in your individual perspective? உங்களோட பார்வையில மனமுதிர்ச்சினா என்னன்னு சொல்லுங்க.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the question. To start with, it is definitely not a simple question. Because maturity as such is such a laden term full of information. What do we qualify as maturity? For me, something could be maturity. For somebody, something else could be maturity. But looking from the psychological perspective, I would like to call it as the way that the ability to respond to the environment. When I'm being aware of what is happening around me, and when I respond to the right time, in the right location, and behave and act in the way which is in accordance to the circumstances and the culture of the society in which I live. இதான் அந்த காலத்துல பாட்டிலாம் சொல்லுவாங்க, இடம் பொருள் ஏவல் அறிந்து பேசுதல். எப்போ பேசணும், எங்க பேசணும், எவ்வளவு பேசணும், எப்படி பேசணும், யார்கிட்ட பேசணும். This is maturity. When I understand not only my ability, what the environment or what the society expects from me. So what do I talk? How do I talk? When do I talk? Where do I talk? To whom do I talk? If somebody knows all this, we can call them a mature person. So it is a very subjective term like what you definitely said, but again, it depends on individual to individual. This is from the psychological perspective.
Now let's hear from Bhavani Shankar sir. Doctor, please take it up. Unmute yourself, sir.
Vanakkam, and thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to engage. Thank you so very much. நானும் நப்பனே சொல்ற மாதிரி தான் என்னுடைய கருத்தும் இருக்கு. Only thing I feel that the word itself is a continuum. Maturity, it's not, you cannot package and say that it moves from one state to another state. It is a process that continuously shifts the child in me to the adult in me. இதுதான் நான் வந்து சொல்றது. அஃப்கோர்ஸ் இதுல வந்து குழந்தை பருவத்திலேயோ அடலசென்ட் ஹுட்லயோ என்ன இருக்கோ, அதே நேரத்துல அடல்ட்ஹுட்ல என்ன இருக்கோ, இதை வந்து நம்ம இன்னொரு ஆராய்ச்சிக்கு எடுத்துக்கலாம். பட் ஓவரால் ஐ வுட் சே இட் இஸ் அ ஸ்டேட் ஆஃப் மைண்ட். அம்மா சொன்ன மாதிரி இட்ஸ் ஸ்டேட் ஆஃப் மைண்ட். ஸோ திஸ் பர்மிட்ஸ் மீ டு கனெக்ட் within myself, number one. So understand and implode and to make sense of, say, the purpose that I'm in, and transmit that purpose to the society and the people around. இது ஒரு இந்த சிச்சுவேஷன் வந்து கண்டினியூஸா சேஞ்சிங் சிச்சுவேஷன் தான். இதுல வந்து பேக்ல வந்து ஒரு 15-20 பொருள் இருக்கும். இந்த 15-20 பொருள்ல 10 பொருளை தூக்கி போட்டுட்டு இன்னொரு 5 பொருளை சேர்த்துக்க வேண்டும். அதுக்கப்புறம் இன்னொரு 15 பொருளை கூடவே தூக்கிட்டு பாரமா எடுத்துட்டு போயிட்டு இன்னொரு இடத்துல ஒரு 5 பொருளை இறக்கி வைக்க வேண்டும். திஸ் இஸ் a continuous process, guided of course, இடம் பொருள் ஏவல் நம்ம சொன்னாங்க. ஸோ இதை வந்து இட்ஸ் அ ப்ராசஸ் guided by the context around which a person operates. ஸோ இதுதான் என்னுடைய add on to what she said.
Excellently said, sir. Divya, now from your perspective, as a young person, we want you to connect to the younger crowd, because today we are concentrating more on young crowd, young adults.
Thank you so much.
This discussion.
So thank you for the opportunity, sir. I think before everything, thank you so much, because I am meeting a completely different world from my perspective. Not that young versus old, but it's just that it's a new realm of thought processing. I think coming third in this whole queue is both, you know, a great, really a fun thing, because ellame sollitanga, yes, agree to everything sollikalam. But in addition to it, if I have to add, I think I completely agree with the rest of the panel as such, Bhavani Shankar sir and Napine ma'am as well. But it's kind of, to me, it's a very abstract term, right? So maturing or maturity as such, like sir said, it's an evolution of a person as such. So in my lifetime, I evolve as well. But in certain aspects, if we look at it, it may not necessarily be a factor of age. So some of us may be sort of much more mature. So in the sense, it's between the person understanding with clarity of who I am in one angle, and also my interaction with the environment. So when I say environment, if there is some sort of an aberration, how do I respond to it? And, you know, how do I kind of like gather myself and sort of like interact with it with much more, I would say, in accountable. I gather myself in accountability for my actions, and sort of like, probably it's I find it difficult to put it into words, but in one angle, I would say it's an abstract phrase where it's clarity of who I am. It's layers and layers of understanding what I am not as well. In addition, I would probably add, you know, my response and interaction with the environment. So I'll just keep it short and probably roll over it as, you know, the panel discussion goes on. This is probably my introduction. I'll keep it short. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for your viewpoint of it. I know you are a very matured girl and you'll be having a different perspective of everything. Fine. Now let's take the second question to Napine madam. Or you want to continue on this, madam?
Like everybody said, you know, it is a process. I do agree with, you know, exactly the word process and abstract. It's so true, because not everybody who's elder is mature. The term that she used is responsibility. When I take ownership of my action, that is maturity. When I can say, yes, stand up for myself or stand up for my actions, that talks about my mental maturity. Today, like Divya, I think all the youngsters are much matured enough, but at times I also wonder whether they're losing out on the child in them. Like sir was telling them, the child in them is evolving to an adult, But now I'm seeing the child in them is lost when they are born as a child itself. That is very pathetic. We're talking of maturing, but it is so subjective and, like she said, it's abstract. I'm seeing a different paradigm of maturity in the adults, a different paradigm of maturity in youngsters, where it is pathetic to say the child in them is slowly dying. But I don't know, as adults, if we need to take ownership of it and become more responsible in creating a safer and secure environment for the children to be children. Which I think it is the role of all of us to keep the society in such a way that this is all that you can expect from a child and it is okay. We're not doing that. We can have an apple, we can have an orange, but we want both to taste like a mango. It is very, very unfortunate. You want this, fish to climb and fly. You want the bird to swim, and the race is always like that. So maturity, we talking of maturity, somewhere I feel we are pressurizing the children. Yeah, Ray, this is time. Yeah, you better be matured enough. It's okay. Even at this age, I doubt if I have maturity. If you ask people, I'm sure they might say, the professional front, they might say I'm a very mature person. From the familial front, if people know of Sarah, people know of my family, they'll say, oh, Array, she's a very childish girl. Yeah. She's yet to be mature. I don't know how she's in the profession. So it is a term where we are qualifying ourselves when we take ownership of our behavior for whatever action. That is what I would call it more as maturity without killing the child in there. A child will come and say, yes, miss, I copied from the notebook. When you're trying to make somebody mature, no, I didn't copy, probably this is what I thought is right. We are somewhere tweaking maturity in a way where we are killing the child in them is what I personally feel. I might be wrong. I would like the others to comment on my statement.
Bhavani Shankar sir, please, I'll go after you. It's easy for me to be number 3.
It is emerging to be a very engaging discussion. So, இப்போ வந்து நம்ம ஒரு கான்செப்ட் ஆஃப் மெச்சூரிட்டின்னு எடுத்துட்டு வந்துட்டு நம்ம வந்து என்ன சொல்றோம்னு சொன்னா நம்மளுடைய ப்ரொஃபஷனல் ஆஸ்பெக்டும் நம்மளோட பர்சனல் ஆஸ்பெக்டுமே ஒரு கான்ஃப்ளிக்ட்ல வருது. இதுல வந்து ப்ரொஃபஷனலி மெச்சூர் பட் பர்சனலி ஸ்டில் அ சைல்ட். பட் தென் யூ கேன் see that there is a perception bias. ஸோ இப்போ நம்ம வந்து ஒரு பயாலஜிஸ்டாவோ அம்மா ஒரு சைக்காலஜிஸ்டாவோ சொன்னாங்கன்னு சொன்னா there is a perception bias. நான் வந்து என்ன சொல்றேன்னா as a biologist I would say so it is a transition time from being a child to being an adult. And so therefore maturation is a process which will definitely put in a load of responsibility into the child to become an adult. And by virtue of looking at how my own brain works, the executive functions that the prefrontal cortex takes, so between the age of 25 and 30 is when you can hope this child to become an adult. So this is good for a tarka or a debate, but then it doesn't work like that. நம்மளோட கான்ஸ்டிடியூஷன்லயே வந்து votingக்குன்னு ஒரு ஏஜ் வச்சிருக்காங்க. So இப்போ வந்து minorhood and majorhood or majority, they say கல்யாண வயது ஒரே வயது கிடையாது. ஸோ நம்மளுடைய கேர்ளுக்கும் பாய்க்கும் வேற வேற வயது சொல்றாங்க. அதே மாதிரி கிட்னாப் பண்ணணும்னு சொன்னா 16 வயசு பையன் வந்து மைனர்ன்றாங்க, ஆனா 18 வயசு பொண்ணு தான் மைனர்ன்றாங்க. So the question now is there is a kind of difference that is set and a bias that is placed in our mind about what is this maturation. ஸோ இதுக்கு வந்து ஒரு காமன் பிளாட்ஃபார்ம் கிடையாது. கான்ஸ்டிடியூஷன்ல லீகல் ஆஸ்பெக்ட்ஸ்க்கு தனி, பயாலஜியில வந்து பியூபர்ட்டிக்கு தனி, சைக்காலஜிஸ்ட்ல வந்து மென்டல் மெச்சூரிட்டி அண்ட் இமோஷனல் மெச்சூரிட்டிக்கு தனி, இப்போ பிலாசபருக்கு வந்து செம்மைப்படுத்துதல் நீங்க வந்து முதிர்ச்சின்னு சொன்னா வயசாயிடுச்சோன்னு நினைச்சுவாங்க. இப்ப வந்து பன்மைப்படுத்துதல் செம்மைப்படுத்துதல்னு சொன்னாதான் நம்மளுக்கு புரியுறதோ பழுக்க வைக்கிறாங்களான்னு கேட்கறாங்க. So the question is, if the context makes the definition of maturation very, very funny. But see, from the discussion that we have been having around it, it is to space. I might be wrong. Bala sir, please correct me. So it is the space to realize, see, for people who are young, to get into the space of greater responsibility and accountability. So if we are talking about maturation as a process now, and this language has to appeal to a very young audience, I would say young, so I would include all the children to young adults to people who are under the age of 100. So because I would say that that's a good enough number, because I would say that still I am young and I can learn on different aspects. So in the Parva Nilai, nammalukku vandu for general acceptance, I would say, so from being an adolescent to an adult, and also the young adults, say for all of you who are getting into a very purposeful family life or a profession or employment. So we are contextualizing that space. If we are contextualizing that space, so our discussions are going to revolve around, say, what makes sense for the youngsters and the citizens of tomorrow who are going to shape the world. So if my understanding is right, Bala sir, so I would say that this particular discussion is going to lead me in that direction.
Excellent, sir. Sir, கட்டுறது கைமண் அளவு, கல்லாதது உலக அளவு. அதே மாதிரி தான் மெச்சூரிட்டியும். It's continuous process only. Next, Divya can add on to that. And I know you are a very, very mature girl. You must be 100 years old now. Please go ahead and take it up.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the 100 years compliment. I take it very well. And I think there was a lot of things to unpack in this, right? So I think I'll start with what ma'am spoke about in terms of, is the child in us dying, as in the younger ones. Romma chinna vayasle we are exposed to a lot of reality that, are we really losing the child in us? I think it depends, in my opinion, because I think, yes, like how ma'am said, right, there is a professional box. Like if we put boxes in things, in the world of profession, I have a certain personality in that box. Then if I look at my interaction with my very close friends, there is a different personality that comes out. Adula or a sense of innocence and that personality or expression. So my expression in different boxes with different people actually evolves. And is also very dependent, right? So when I am talking to my boss, I'm probably going to be a teacher or boss or someone senior to me. I would probably be super respectful. I would actually be very cautious of the words I use and all that. But with my friends circle, let's say for example, with people of my age, it's going to be very different. So I would probably be the child in me. I wouldn't be very aware, right? So in the sense, Roma conscious ah irukka maate. So when I'm not conscious, there is a different personality that comes. There is the natural, there is an unfiltered version that comes in certain places, right? So in that case, then we are looking at my child in me is probably there, but only with those bunch of people. So that is a possibility for that. And also the version of me with my parents is going to be different. Amma appa kitta pesrappa, they've seen me since childhood. So probably the other way around. So they will filter the version. Even if I am mature, they'll probably filter me out saying that, no, she's not old enough for doing all this. So that can also happen. So I think it is the interaction between two people. When we see it, different personalities emerge, different expressions of myself emerge. And through that, maybe my child in me is still alive, but it is expressed only in certain circles. Maybe this is a possibility. I think that was one. Second, sir spoke about, I think, aging as such, right? So he spoke about how aging, like he rightly said, the prefrontal cortex, which is here, the brain's prefrontal cortex area, sort of the gray matter develop ஆறதுக்கு வந்து it takes till 25 years as per neuroscience. So அப்படி இருக்கிறப்ப then why do we wait? It means that I can make decisions better as per the literature. I could be wrong, please correct me, sir. So in that case, my decision-making process or the ability to sort of like comprehend as well as make decisions is much better because the gray matter is a filter. So my reaction goes down, my response includes my ability to process things. So I but I would probably say problem I would know. So then what will happen? Okay, wait, how else can I handle it? Option that prefrontal cortex or whatever that age profile can actually say. However, that is also only a pattern that has been recognized. So when we look at all of these signs as such, when we look at it, it is the pattern. What is the general pattern that actually talks about it? Like when I take a blood test, then the general population has iron of this content in the range. So yes, when we talk about the process in aging, yes, there seems to be a pattern, and not everybody need to be in that norm, and not everybody need to be in the exact exception. So I think on the normal distribution curve, is going to be very subjective, and I'd probably love to listen to both ma'am and sir on that context. I think this was second. And the third, I think I had one more. Third was more along aging a curve. So I think I was talking to Bala sir about this, where yes, we have this maturity curve of going up, but I do believe as we grow even older, we kind of come back to that circle. Maybe my oldest age is the child in me that's coming back again in my 80s or my 90s. I think that's my perspective, because having grown up with my grandparents, as they grow older, I feel like the tables turn at a certain point in life, because they would need certain help wherein I would kind of like get in, right? And the accountability includes them. So, and that time they probably let go of that accountability and responsibility in that later stage. And the or age kapro where, either it's abrasive where I'm not having control, or it's like the child in me comes back again at my later age, and I hope my children will kind of like do what I used to do before. So maybe it's the circle of life. So this is just a perspective. So from a maturity perspective, I'd let the panel talk. I think a lot of things, probably 3 boxes per quota. So yeah. Bala sir,
Thank you, Divya. Next question will be taken by Swapna, co-moderator will be taking the question.
Yes. Can you hear me, Divya? Can you hear me? Yeah, great. So I think RJ has raised a hand. So can we have RJ speaking in? I mean, I think he has a question. RJ, are you there? Yes. All right. Before we go on to that, I would like to
ma'am, actually, you went on mute back again. Mrs. Nair, I think you actually went on mute. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Now am I audible?
Yes.
Great.
And RJ mentioned that he was not able to unmute himself. So
okay,
just a technical.
Unmuted. All right. Let's just.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. So I would like Vijesh Gargji, retired from Navy, top naval officer who's been in the war front as well as a civilian now after retirement. I think he's been into these kind of trainings where he's talked about maturing of mind. So I would like his viewpoint here. Vijeshji, if you could just add on to this. Vijesh Garg.
No, I'm not getting his name.
Garg. He's Garg. Yeah. Sorry, they're just unmuting you. Yes.
So unmute yourself, sir. Mr. Garg, unmute yourself, sir.
Vijeshji, can you unmute? Yes. Yes, sir. Now? Oh. Yes.
He went on unmute and muted again. I think there's like a split second.
Unmute.
Yes, okay. Now yes, okay. Yes.
Can you see me? Okay.
Yes.
So, though all panelists have covered so beautifully, I just put in the chat box as well. As I see it and we see in military, a young boy join us at age of 16 or age 17 years, young officer. And how we see as we call it maturity in him as we go senior. Basically, you see a situation, your thinking process transforms from a young towards situation. You put all the things like Divya said, gray matter. So gray matter starts seeing things, analyzing that way. His analysis of situation becomes that much better to him. So we say he's maturing now. Then his reaction to those situations after analysis and his response, and he behaved that way. If I put four things together, that's what I call a maturity. Now, as you mentioned, Madam Seren said that children, some mature early, some go late. It is absolutely true. There are officers I have seen as a colonels under training with me in CDM Secunderabad. They're behaving like absolutely kiddos there in a gang mentality. They again become children. So there is a response. They're showing the behavior they're showing, but they know analytical thing is there. So maturity is, I think, the combination of four put together. And that's what I like to sum it up. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Madam,
so much.
you want to continue on that, madam?
Exactly. Like we were talking of the prefrontal cortex. I just wanted to add a point, Divya. Exactly. Our brain is such a beautiful organ. But I don't know, we use it by saying, you don't have brains. We don't know how nice it is to say, I have brains, but I'm not using it in the right aspect. Nobody is born without brains. We all have brains, but we have the capacity to say, you're behaving as if you don't have brains, or you don't have brains for that matter. But when you are an adolescent, a young adult, there's an increase in the gray matter. I'm just trying to connect to what Divya said, when the curve, and when I get matured enough, or when I become old, what happens? And I'm just looking at the other side of it. There's an increase in the brain matter, and they're so interconnected with each other. The interconnection of the brain is so strong. The neurotransmitters are strong, and it gives them a lot of ability to process. They're able to process things so fast. Like when we started, Roger Bala said, I'm not a techie, but he said Divya is a techie, which is 100% true. He had to moderate the educationist by saying, sir, can you put down your camera a bit? These are all something where you process with power. This is more possible in a child because the brain matter is swelling. There's so much of increase in the brain matter, be it gray matter or the entire gray matter, which diminishes by age, which is in the peak when they're in the adolescent and in the adulthood. That is why they're able to take a lot of decisions based on their processing capacity. And they're very fast in processing. You and I probably, I'm calling myself old, so I'd say it needs to be told quite a few times for us to process something. But for them, it is like that. Adala solranga pasumara thani mari. Inna pillaila, whatever you say, pasumara thani mari padinjirum. So neenga enna solringlo adha correct ah solunga. Children don't have the capacity to filter, like what Divya said. We can filter. Our parents might filter us. Like, in transactional analysis, we say, you either operate from the parent mode, or operate from the adult mode, or operate from the child mode. The parent will always look at the adult also in the child mode. However elder I am always in the... I'm like, people are calling me, I'm talking, and the world is listening to me. My mother could just be an SLC, but she will say, I know better than you, which is 100% true, because her processing power with her experience. Maybe there is a diminution in the gray matter. Maybe there is a, the coordination in the processing is reducing, but the power of experience is so high that they're able to hold it. But again, as it weans away, the gray matter and all the cells of the brain for youngsters, they can multiply so beautifully. But as we grow old, it dies, and the ability to multiply also gets lower, because sand size, sand sight, we become another child. Probably like what Divya said, I'm reiterating her statement. Inhibition illa. என்ன வேணா நினைச்சுக்கப்பா, என்னை பத்தி அவ்வளவுதான், இதுக்கு மேல நான் ஒண்ணும் கிடையாது. நீ இவ்வளவு இது வரைக்கும் ஐ ஹாவ் டு ப்ரூவ் மை செல்ஃப். ஐயோ இவங்க கூப்பிட்டுட்டாங்களே, நான் ஒழுங்கா பேசணும். இதே என்னுடைய ஃபாதர் லாவையோ மதர் லாவையோ அட போமா என்னத்தையோ சொல்லிட்டு வாமா, என்ன இருக்கு இப்போ இவங்க எல்லாம் என்ன சொன்னா என்ன, they reach the power that they are able to accept anything. But here we are trying to prove always. Like children, they are also having a process of power that they will do everything not just to prove to you but for also themselves. It helps their self esteem. But நமக்கு என்னன்னா ஒரு இவங்க என்ன நினைச்சிருவாங்க, ஐயோ எனக்கு அப்புறம் இவரு பேச போறாரு, இவரு என்னோட பாயிண்ட சொல்லிட்டாருன்னா நான் என்ன பண்றது, ஐயோ இந்த பொண்ணு இவ்வளவு சின்ன பொண்ணா இருக்கே, இதை விட இது பேசிடுச்சுன்னா 24/7 there is power of processing in my brain which is creating a lot of shackles. But whereas for a young mind it is so beautiful that they're full swollen, the gray matter is so good and it is developing, the cells are properly maintained. But for us it is probably in the process of diminishing, and we are still striving to fight between these two, the adulthood or the parenthood or the childhood, and we are having a lot of complications where the maturity, yeah, maybe we are mature professionally or personally, anything. Again, the power of processing is diminishing by age. So other than we are trying to fight it and calling ourselves matured by experience, irkalam eppadi vena irkalam. So it is a process that children have the power for it. Adanaala solra accountability avanga eduthitaanga they are the best because they have the power of processing. Unne ama theriyam pannita I will not do it, and the responsibility and accountability vanduchina they are excellent individuals. அவங்க இல்லனா நம்ம இல்ல சார். We learn a lot through children. It's not only me. அந்த காலத்திலே தகப்பன் சாமின்னு ரொம்ப அழகா முருகர் சொல்லி சிவன் கேட்டுக்கிட்டார். அதுதான் நமக்கு. We are all learning from our children. I think I don't know if I'm telling it correctly. Every child is a father. That's what it says. I'm not able to get. My father used to statement though. Every child is a father of a man. Exactly. And thank you Prema. Every child is a father of a man in the Mari. We are all learning from children because they have the power of processing with the enriched brain. Yeah. So as an educationist and Divya, I'm willing to hear from both of you. I know you can add on more.
Thank you. Thanks. Excellently said, ma'am. Sir, you want to add, and Divya also is there. Tamanshekar, take it up, sir.
Sir, two or three things. Now, one is a counterintuitive and a flipped side the presence. Now, what I'm trying to also ask the emergent adults and the youngsters to think about is shaping what we call pro-social or pro-emotional behavior as they grow up. இப்போ வந்து ஒரு 14 19 20 வயசு வரைக்கும் ரிஸ்க் டேக்கிங்னு ஒண்ணு நம்ம சொல்றோம். ஏன் வந்து நிறைய ரிஸ்க்ஸ் எடுத்துக்கிறாங்க. சரி, இன்னொன்னு என்ன பாக்குறோம்னு சொன்னா, எனக்கு வந்து தகுதிகளும் என்னுடைய என்ன சொல்றது மனப்பக்குவமும் இல்லாட்டி உடம்பால எனக்கு வர மெச்சூரிட்டியோ வந்து எல்லாருக்கும் ஒரே நேரத்தில் வருது. So we know that an onset of puberty can be as early as about 9-10 years or as late as 14-15 years. So even to the extent to say that somebody will have to be measured at the same level as another person is terrible and wrong. இப்போ நம்ம என்ன பண்றோம், ஒரு இந்த குழந்தைங்களை பாரு, பக்கத்து வீட்டு பையனை பாரு, அவன் எவ்வளவு வந்து உன்னோட புத்திசாலியா இருக்கான், ஸோ அந்த பொண்ணு பாரு எவ்வளவு வேலையை கத்துட்டு இருக்கு, அவங்க அந்த பையனை பாரு இந்த பையனை பாருன்னு சொல்லி. ஸோ இதுல வந்து ஒண்ணு இன்னேட்டா என்னுடைய ஜெனட்டிக்ஸ், ஸோ வாட் ஐ கேரி இன் மை ஜீன்ஸ். ஸோ தென் பெத்தாலஜி. ஸோ இஃப் ஏர்லி டெவலப்மெண்ட்ல எனக்கு ஏதாவது டிலேஸ் நடந்ததா, நியூட்ரிஷனால நடந்திருக்கலாம், அதால நடந்திருக்கலாம். So my biology is not well connected with the realities. Second is the opportunities. So ஒரு இடத்துல சீக்கிரமாவே இந்த மாதிரி எக்ஸ்பீரியன்சஸ் வந்திருக்குன்னா இன்னொருத்தருக்கு வரல. இப்போ வந்து எல்லாருக்குமே தெரியும், இப்போ ஒரு டாக்ஸி டிரைவருக்கு வந்து ஸ்பேஷியல் இன்டெலிஜென்ஸ் வளர்ந்துட்டே போகுது. அவர் வந்து 30 வயசுல தான் ஓட்டலாம், அவர் 25 வயசு வரைக்கும் அந்த இன்டெலிஜென்ஸ் இருந்திருக்காரு. ஸோ from the time that he starts driving a taxi, So he has a mental map and an orientation which is possibly not in us. Google Map madri அவர் வந்து navigate பண்ணிட்டு போக முடியாது. So to say that over a period of time that the brain kills itself may also not be true, because it might find new paths. When we are talking about risk taking, so we are saying that is it all right now? Culpability, ஒரு 15 வயசு பையன் வந்து யாராவது மூஞ்சில போய் அப்படியே குத்தினான்னு சொன்னா அவனுக்கு வர பனிஷ்மெண்ட்டும், நான் போய் யாராவது ஒருத்தர் மூஞ்சில குத்தினான்னு சொன்னா எனக்கு வர பனிஷ்மெண்ட்டும் வேற. So what makes them sort of get fixed in the space of still being a child? So அந்த ஸ்பேஸ் தான் வந்து நான் வந்து ரெஃபர் பண்றேன். அந்த ஸ்பேஸ்க்குள்ள என்ன தகுதிகள் எல்லாம் ப்ரோ சோஷியல் பிஹேவியருக்கு என்ன தகுதிகள் எல்லாம் அவங்க வளர்த்துக்கணும். அதே நேரத்துல ப்ரோ இமோஷனல் ரெஸ்பான்சஸ். ஸோ இந்த நேரத்துல நான் அழலாமா அழக்கூடாதா, இந்த நேரத்துல என்னுடைய எமோஷனை வெளிப்படுத்தலாமா வெளிப்படுத்தக்கூடாதா, எது வந்து கரெக்ட் அப்ரோப்ரியேட், அந்த இடத்துக்கு அப்ரோப்ரியேட் இடம் பொருள் ஏவல் நீங்க தெரிந்து அதற்கு நடக்க வேண்டும் சொல்றாங்க. இடம் பொருள் ஏவல் அறிந்து அதன்படி நடக்க வேண்டும் என்றால் அதுக்கு நம்மளுடைய மன பக்குவம் தேவைப்படுகிறது. அது ஒரு இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் ஆஸ்பெக்ட். அது நிச்சயமாக குழந்தைகள்ல நம்மளால எக்ஸ்பெக்ட் பண்ண முடியாது. பிகாஸ் we know that the brain is still developing and it takes a long time to reach those experiences. Ipo to look at Divya, so she's a lot younger. At Divya's age, I was possibly a juvenile delinquent. So see the opportunities that are ever now on the cricket already road சுத்திட்டு யார பத்தியும் கவலைப்படாம உட்கார்ந்து ஒரு பாயிண்ட்ல, because there was no need. So I mean I was not challenged with the responsibilities that are otherwise needed for an adult to take up life. So you are happy-go-lucky, you never cared, you continue to study, you continue to do your stuff. So you are not at all worried. The same thing may not be true for a child now. So the radical shift, இப்போ இன்னைக்கு ஒரு சூழ்நிலை நாளைக்கு இல்லை, நாளைக்கு இருக்கிற சூழ்நிலை நாளைக்கு இல்லை, எங்க தாத்தா பண்ண வேலை எனக்கு இரலவெண்டா பண்றது, இந்த குழந்தைக்கு வந்து 2 years older சிப்ளிங் பண்ற வேலை வந்து நீ பண்றதெல்லாம் ஓல்டு, எனக்கு வந்து என்னோட ஜெனரேஷன் வேற ஜெனரேஷன் சொல்ற அளவுக்கு எல்லாமே மாறிட்டு. ஸோ இந்த சூழ்நிலைக்கு உகந்த மாதிரி நம்ம வந்து நம்மளுடைய மனத்தை பக்குவப்படுத்த வேண்டும் என்றால் அந்த குழந்தைகள், நம்ம எல்லாரையுமே நான் அந்த ஏஜ் குரூப்ல போடுறேன், இந்த குழந்தைகளுக்கு என்ன நம்ம வந்து சொல்லிக் கொடுக்க வேணும், இதை எப்படி அவங்களோட மனதை பக்குவப்படுத்த வேண்டும் என்ற கருத்து இந்த இடத்துல பேசணும்னு சொன்னா இன்னும் நல்லா இருக்கும். ஐ எம் ஜஸ்ட் டேக்கிங் அ வெரி கவுண்டர் இன்ட்யூட்டிவ் அப்ரோச் டு திஸ். மேடம் will also agree. See, இப்போ வந்து நம்ம dopamine reward system, we know that see the more we abuse it, so we are not able to connect with see the other aspects of see fear management or pleasure containment or whatever, because everything gets messed up because the children are misguided into taking those stages. Now consumption of pornography, so taking high risk behavior on substance abuse and things like that, so is going to create a very delayed milestone attainment for the child. It can still happen. So it will, when it has to happen at about 18-20 years, it will happen at 35 years. So how these delays are actually possible and how we can help collectively as emergent responsible citizens, as healthcare providers and mental health care providers, and as educationists, as concerned individuals of the society, how we can make that transition possible. So that would be a lovely take. That is what I would say.
Thank you. Thanks, sir. This corona has actually made me a little bit more maturity to start this group, and so thanks. Janeshwar, you'll take the question after Divya. Janeshwar. Okay. Divya, please take it up, Kana.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. So I had notes taken, so there was a lot. Because ma'am and sir kind of like had a lot of really, really nice perspectives. I just wanted to add a couple of things. So I think one common thing I think ma'am answer kind of like pointed out was the exposure, right? So in the sense, like sir said, the opportunity as such, right? So or a driver OT to porappa, he needs it. There is a necessity for it, but at the same time, he's also in the position with the car and his steering wheel. So he actually can experience it and has an exposure to it. So from that perspective, yes, I think exposure adds on to the layers. I think Malcolm Gladwell also talks a little bit about this, the 10,000 hours. That's for expertise. However, there's another book called Blink, I suppose, I forget the name of the book, but he talks about the same thing where sometimes on the intuition were there. So in certain aspects, I should do this, I should not do this. And the intuition could very well be built. There is a possibility that it could be built based on the exposure that this child or this person or this growing human being as such gets to interact or gets to learn from. And the opportunity, excuse me, and the opportunity, like I think sir said, is kind of adds to the layers of the aspect of maturity, if that is technically what we are calling it as maturity. I think that was one commonality. And the second, I think ma'am was talking about the elasticity of the child's brain, right? Elasticity as such, the brain can absorb so much more when I'm a child, because again, I'm again having a no filter layer, right? So I can immediately say, if I'm an adult, let's say someone is coming to tell me this, two things happen. One, I think let's assume I'm in my much senior position. Two things happen. One, even if I experience what else, I probably may know better than this person. I would ignore certain things. But as a child, you know that everything is new. So on the newness, probably, again, that exposure in that newness, if we add it, and the elastic mind can actually register a lot more. And the second thing is excitement. I think the one aspect that most of us, I believe this personally, that the minute you get excited about something, you automatically get that absorption quotient. So, and the elasticity could have factors ranging from, curiosity to repetition. So when I grow old, I may get bored with things that, like, for example, technical, I can say I am old, I really am not, old enough to do it. So I've already created a filter in my head. So in a sense, filterness or sort of like, we say repulsion to the concept of learning something that is sort of I'm not excited about. But when I'm a 4-year-old or a 10-year-old, or even, in my adolescence, I'm kind of curious. For example, I think I got very, excited when I opened my first bank account, and I was like, oh wow, okay, I can do this, I can do that. So that experience or the excitement, the emotional quotient to it also adds to our sense and the sense of absorption. So on the absorption adds to the experience, and the experience, certain point of time, if it is like a cup, and the cup either expand the cup so that more things can be added, and the exposure as such, so that and the maturity as such is also allowed to grow even in my old age. But on the other side, when I'm young, I think on the adolescence age, like sir was talking about, the adrenaline high risk habits that I might kind of like walk through, right? When I'm a teenager, I'm curious because I want to be respected as an adult. But it's kind of like, I think there's this famous song which actually says, I'm not a girl, I'm not yet a woman, or a famous song. So Adu Madri, it's like my aspiration is to be adult. When I become an adult, yes, I want to be a child. That's a different story. But on the other hand, if we look at it, the aspiration is that I want to prove, like ma'am said, the idea, the image of myself. I want everybody to have this image that I am actually a matured person with this capability. So on the rush, sorry, I think so. Sorry, I got distracted a little bit. So this is what happens when we are young. So we do absorb a lot, including the distractions. So yes, so in that aspect, my image of myself, I'm trying to prove to the world. So as I'm kind of like aggressively going towards that, I might walk into all sorts of distractive habits, right? Which could range from all sorts of adrenaline rushes, high risk, dopamine high. I think rather than the dopamine high, I think the anticipation of the dopamine high is what most of us go for. Like, I might remember that one experience where I felt good, and I'll follow that. I'll try to get on the anticipation to it is what will drive me to do even worse things sometimes. So that's one box I'll probably it's a different, I think, Pandora's box to open. So I'll probably box it there. So on the Oru part, setting aside, I think Sir spoke, next topic was more along what Sir spoke about pathology and genetics as such. Maturity as an acceptable behavior. So I'll come back to it. I'm sorry. I'll finish this line. So pathology and genetics, I think that's a very complicated space as such, because genetics as such, it's a very highly debated space, because intelligence, I think, of course, we are trying to do the gene editing part and all that. So we are trying to identify, I've taken a 23andMe test and tried to see what kind of gene I have, SNP genes as such, snippets as such. And I know there is a sprinter gene, but there is no specific intelligence gene or maturity gene as such today, right? So I don't know. So I'm going to be a little, I'm going to distinct myself a little from the genetic angle, because that's just my take on things, because it's very difficult, because in genetics as such, the bioinformatics world just tries to understand a pattern. Out of 100 samples of genes or DNA samples that I take, அதுல வந்து if 90 of them show that இவங்கெல்லாம் IQ high-ஆ இருக்கு அப்படின்னா அவங்களுக்கு எந்த geneல வந்து கரெக்டா இருக்குன்னு they try to interpret. So on the pattern recognition can be right or wrong. But meanwhile, what like ma'am said, the neurotransmitter, that side of things can be at least proven as such through experiments. But in there is again is a little fuzzy space. I would probably distinct myself from that. But apart from this, I wanted to post, like just like Sir spoke about, in a young age, how do I mature? The process, as well as the adrenaline aspects, and also the personality development towards maturity. Eppadi pannalam அப்படிங்கற angle. In addition to it, I would actually ask the panel as well as everybody else this question: is there a gender connection to maturity? In the sense, like ma'am said, and Sir also mentioned in the legal angle, where women are given a lower marital age bar, whereas men are given a little higher. So is there a gender angle to it? Do women mature quicker than the men? That's a question. I don't know. And the second question I want to throw is technology as such, because I think that's one wide, I think, elephant in the room that we might have to address, which is when I look in my phone, my image of myself is built from my Instagram profiles or my Facebook profiles or my Twitter feeds. And what do people think of me? Am I cool? Am I respected? So all of those images are also evolving on one side, but social interaction is going very textual in a non-verbal space. So how are we looking at maturity in that angle, right? So, and also it's going to be very significantly important, because a teenage level, if I have to make it public, the kind of text messages I sent or my perspectives in my teenage, and if it is going to be recorded all through the history, my evolution as such, for me, I would take it. But what about the rest of the world? If I want to erase my teenage nonsensical behavior, I may not have a chance. I may or may not have a chance. So from a technology's perspective, it has an emotional impact on me, because if someone posts something bad about me publicly online in a common friends platform, and say in Instagram or anywhere in social media, then that actually does have, an impact on me. So in that scale, what are we talking about in the maturity angle, right? And the emotional stability. And I think the third question I had was, I think, again, it's a lot to unpack again, adversity. So does an early adversity give me a chance to mature early? Like Sir said, when there is no necessity, I have a happy childhood. Why should I mature young? Does it have to do with, my family circumstances are so difficult that I have to grow up early? So maybe that pushed me to mature faster and lose my childhood earlier, and the exposure actually go on. Sorry. I think I had written a lot of things. I'll wrap it up. And just like Sir said, the qualities as to what we really need and things like that, I'll probably wrap up this. Thank you for reminding on the time. Please do cut me. I have a lot of divergent thoughts.
Yes. Excellent. You got so much to say, Divya. But let's hear others' views also. Gnaneshwar, you have something to say, Gnaneshwar?
Yes. So in our quest to understand what maturity is, are we presuming a contradiction between childlikeness and maturity? I don't think that it is a contradiction at all. If you associate a young person with excitement, curiosity, and these two important features, then you can be excited and curious even at a quite advanced age. So you need Steve Jobs said, stay hungry and stay foolish. That is a recipe for success. So I think to presume a contradiction between childlikeness and maturity will take us in the wrong path. That perhaps we have to look into that particular contradiction. Second thing is, like Sir mentioned and Madam mentioned and even Divya mentioned, the plasticity of the brain is a function of the connections between billions of neurons in the brain. So that according to neuroscience is not, age is not a limiting factor at all. Like Sir mentioned about the taxi drivers, the V.S. Ramachandran in his Emerging Mind and Phantoms in the Brain spoke about this, and he's one of the greatest neuroscientists in the world. And Hariri in his Homo Deus and his other book. So he says the brain has the ability to make new connections even at any age. So it is like Bhavani Shankar sir said, it's a continuous process. So perhaps we should keep that in mind. So therefore, and one more point that Divya mentioned was what others will think of me. So I'm almost 60 now. So I would consider maturity to have a bearing or considering my opinion about myself most important as against the opinions of others determining about what I have, about an image that I have about myself. So these are the 3 points I just wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The panelists, any one of the panelists want to add to this?
Yeah.
Or Napine, Madam?
I think Sir perfectly mentioned it. I don't have anything to add.
We'll take the question. From my audience, there's a question. Prema Madam has given some question. Take it up.
Yes. Yeah,
Prema.
Yeah, there is a question from Prema. Do you call maturity as an acceptable behavior or something that people or society acknowledge? Would there,
Who wants to take that?
Would there be a view?
I would like to take that because see, fortunately or unfortunately, we are caught up as social animals. So we have set boundaries by way of contextualizing those boundaries. See, some of what is relevant and contextual in India may not be the same in another country. So I would definitely put a lot of value to the social relevance of say our behavior. So within your own, say I'm a great bathroom singer, so I might be jumping around in the bathroom and doing things, and that would make me happy. But I can't do the same thing in a societal space. No, the society dictates, the social elements dictates to us. See what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. So it is up to us to decide. We can still see. Let us say senior principal now of the school comes and then he sets up 15 bottles of liquor here and then attends a panel. So that's unacceptable, right? So why do we set this? Is because we believe that we are a part of a larger societal framework, and whatever is relevant, say as behavior and acceptable as behavior is fashioned and imitated in that particular space. Over a period of time, this imitation is internalized, and that becomes a way of practice. So I would say something that would seriously impact, say, our behavior if we were not in tune with the socially accepted behavior or emotionally accepted behavior. So is as a condition where we react to the media pressures, right? So the media is actually triggering fake news or promoting something which is an opinion. And now say all of us fall in line and everybody gets angry over something which we don't even know it exists in the first place. And we demonstrate that anger in passing on our continuous opinions. So, see, the opinion could be very, very intellectual or set to the academic space. However, we don't do that. We just say that this person is an idiot. This person has no right to live. This person has to be hanged. Now, so these are personal assaults. I would say how such behaviors are unacceptable because they are not confining us to any kind of relevance. It's only making people take sides and then start debating about things. So, and intellectually, I mean, nothing comes out of it. No? At the end of it, it's just an intellectual waste. So I just want to add on something about the looks. Interestingly, when I started off on a particular day, when I just asked my wife, say, I mean, prim and proper and how I look, I mean, she said, hey, so you understand. So see, it's done and dusted. So beyond a point, you know, see, there are certain significant, let us say, social relevances, and accordingly, you go ahead and see, present yourself. Say, what is the guarantee that I am not wearing a pair of boxers or shorts and sitting? Because see, only my top shows to the entire screen. So this is a curious question which we can pose to one another. But would you dare do that? So it's you wouldn't do it, right? So see, now if you're asking me if it is relevant, yes, absolutely it is relevant, because you can't go ahead and mess around, say making, otherwise people will say that this guy is making a fool of himself. You understand? It's not because they need to be judgmental on me, because that is an accepted behavior. You wouldn't do it in a temple. You wouldn't do it to a court. You wouldn't do it when say there are some things like that formally dressed. So you wouldn't do that, right? So you're practicing the social norms. I would say yes, please. So we are social animals, and we have a responsibility to the community and the society as well.
Right.
Can I counter add a little bit of a controversial point on that?
Make it short, but a lot of questions from the audience. So make it short.
I'll make it very short, because socially accepted behavior is also a moving target. That's one thing I wanted to sort of like put it, because what's good in 1950s need not necessarily be the norm of 2021. So that is also a moving target. And second, in some cases, it does, even when a mature mind can question the norm. So I just wanted to add that, because I think the rebel in me is kind of like peeking up and saying that should be noted. That's it.
Okay.
There was a question asking about, risk-taking behavior, and I think Sir was also talking about it. I just wanted to highlight a few on that, and just one point about what Mr. Ganesh told about Ramchandran Sir's book. Exactly, neuroplasticity. Today we say, if one part of the brain is affected, initially we thought we can't do anything with that. If they lose the Broca's area, they can't talk. That is what we believe. But today they say, stimulate the neighboring area so that takes over what this part of the brain was supposed to do. So even when they grow old, we are still having probabilities. To add on the point about maturity and impulsive behavior, something we were talking about. Exactly, impulsive behavior is more prevalent among youngsters or among people who are yet to mature mentally. When I say mentally, I'm talking of intellectual maturity, because when you're not mature, be it an adult, be it a youngster, be it a child, I'm talking holistically, you start looking at situations emotionally. You don't look at situations intellectually. I'm sorry, I'm not to look at things very rationally. I'm not appreciating that. Neither am I appreciating looking everything emotionally. It needs to be a combination of both. That is called as the wise mind. You look from the intellectual mind and from the emotional mind, take little of both and have a wise mind where you can think on these lines. But unfortunately, when somebody is not mature, they get into an impulsive mode where there is a lot of novelty seeking. They want to try everything. A lot of, like Divya said, they want to learn everything. They're a lot of novelty seeking, which again is in a spectrum. It could be on a good area, or it could be on a bad area where there is a lot of risk taking. Particularly when you see this mob frenzy, we call it as mob frenzy. When there are 2-3 people, when a girl is walking on the road, they'll comment. When he's alone, he might as well go quietly. So this group behavior again influences his risk-taking behavior. They want to try all this. I would like to have a small anecdote here. Immature mind is like sponge. They can take in anything. A mature mind is like a sieve. They can filter what they want and they take the best. So whether you're a sponge or a sieve is left to the maturity of the person. And like Divya said, there's a lot of peer influence. There's a lot of peer pressure. I need to be accepted, and there is so much of influence. I know children who want to take up the course because the friend is joining the course. I know nothing about it. I know it might not add value to it because that boy can have his father run a business and he might do it. But I will do it because there's a lot of social affiliation that is peer-based. They want everything towards themselves. I totally agree. Like, what my brother did is obsolete to me, and we are running past in our technology or in our social acceptance or social expectation, which is definitely predominantly a burden on us. And of course, we are also, as children or as adults, we are in turn expecting the society to expect more. I think it is a loop. It is not that the society is alone expecting from me. I am giving something to the society, and the society is getting rewarded by it. And it's the reward which makes me expect more, or the society to expect more. Like how a reward center in the brain is triggered when they use any substance. There is a reward center which says seek for more. There is craving and addiction, which is common when they start using their cell phone also. So I just wanted to throw light on, the impulsive behavior. Sorry, I took more minutes.
Yes. Fine, madam. It's all educational for everybody. And RJ has been raising hands. Are you there, RJ?
Rajan?
RJ, someone.
Yeah, he's Rajan. Yes, Rajan.
Rajan? Rajan, unmute yourself.
Hello. Yeah, can you guys hear me now? Wonderful.
Yeah, we switch on the video if possible.
I am in a position where I'm unable to, sir. Otherwise,
okay,
I would
have turn
the video on.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So first of all, thanks for the panelists to throwing light on a wide variety of areas, because I am at an age where all of my friends have had a baby with a year or two, and they are all on this stage. They are all at the learning stages now. So we are all pretty much new to raising a baby, and we are all looking for avenues to find and learn more about it. So now talking about maturity here, one of the major concerns that we all, when we sit together and discuss, is that we all had, or during our childhood days, we all developed a little bit of moral compass, which helped us, which was developed from hearing stories, hearing morals, hearing advices, hearing from neighbors, hearing from grandparents, and everybody around us. Unfortunately, under current circumstances, the moral compass for the young children is actually missing. And the like Bhavani sir just mentioned like a minute or two back, they are getting so much influenced by the media and the social that's around them. Their moral compass itself gets set at a very different angle. When I say it's at a different angle, I mean that the percentage of depression, the percentage of suicide rates are going high. So how do we address this problem primarily? That's my question to the panel.
The panelist, one of you can take it.
Raj, if it's okay. See, you started off saying that you're entering parenthood, right? See, what did our parents do? So let us quickly go on a reflective mode. So I think one is that they gave us abundant time. See, time is not sitting next to me and looking at the mobile phone. You understand? So, see, if you're seeing the children, so there are plenty of material and content which clearly outlines as to why the child seeks to be noticed, and what happens when the child is able to establish physical contact, oral contact, spatial contact through the eyes and smell, and get those influences at home. So now it's I, me, myself, and I become super nuclear, which says that the father says, hi, how are you, baby? Say hello to me, good morning to me, sitting in US. So mother is somewhere else. So how much of time do we actually spend with children? So I'm saying, sorry, it's not the children. Say we are to blame as adults. We are to blame. So I would say that this responsibility squarely rests with us. Let us throw away technology for some time, embrace relationships, embrace bonding, embrace nurturing, bring the second circle of your family. So grandfather and grandmoms are the best thing that can happen to children. I'm sorry to say that they are rejected from the entire framework of what a family is. So, and sadly, I'm also saying this because there is a personhood takeover. So the personhood takes over and say that, the I, me, myself space starts ruling, and it does not see this, little small shifts happening from time to time. By the time that the child is 25, we have lost the child. So this is my take, long and short.
Thank you. Well, Divya, take it up, Divya. You want something?
I'll keep it short. Sorry, I tend to talk. I take a little extra. So I think two things. Like Sir said, I think the social structure as such is changing. Like the nuclear families are much more predominant because of geography as well. I myself, when I travel across, from India to anywhere else, I see so many grandparents either going to meet their children or coming back from meeting their children. So, and I want to dig into my own personal story of, I grew up with my grandfather telling me moral stories every day, as in every summer. I'll correct myself, every summer, because every summer vacation, every night, my grandfather would tell me a moral story, Ambali Mama, Chanda Mama, some story or the other. So that kind of did help me to ground myself as to whether what I'm doing is right or wrong, because there were avenues, even I did go through teenage just like everybody else. Every time something like that came up, I knew that wouldn't end well, because those stories kind of give you an impression of what really that path looks like, right? It draws an image of where the map towards from that behavior would go through. That's one. Second, I think also the exposure quotient in terms of, from my father. Every night my father would actually treat me like an adult. So every time I had to make a decision, my mom and dad Amma and Appa would not make it. So they would actually sit with me, explain what the decision was, and they would tell me, if you take this, these are the options that could happen. You make the choice. And since my childhood, they used to tell me that Amma and Appa always treated me like an adult. So when it came to a time when I was an adult and the decision making, I was already used to it. So the pattern was sort of set by my Amma and Appa. So Appa used to tell me economic stories. So when I was, I think, 12 or 13, I was a tough child. So I wouldn't get these kaka pace or anything like that. So Ambali Mama stories didn't work anymore. So he ended up talking about inflation and deflation, about economics. And that stuck with me. I'm an engineer, but still I understand economics because it did set some storyline. Like I think the Abhimanyu story sort of a thing. So in the younger age, it does have certain impact on you. So it blew my mind as to how my Appa would explain inflation with Cadbury chocolates. So if the chocolate, price goes up, you won't be able to buy it. And like, whoa, that can happen. And then, you learn from it. And the moral science, as well as the education aspect, I think the parents, they taught me to make a decision by explaining how decisions are made. I think this is just my take. And I am not mature enough to grow up with it. So I let them take it. I'd love to hear what ma'am says as well, maybe.
Yeah, Divya, just to add on, I just really miss the moral science classes we used to have. Bhavani sir, we used to have moral science classes when we were growing up, and now it is, yes, we do have value education, etc. But then somewhere, yes, I do not know if there's a disconnect because of that lack of grounding, or maybe can we bring that back? I mean, senior principals like you could tell the CBSE, it's time we need to get back to that. So yeah, and then Napine ma'am, now you can just add on to what.
I don't like passing the back to somebody. So I would say it starts from us. Why should the school alone have a moral science class? It's nice. Yes, I did have a moral science class. It was excellent. But again, it starts from the family. The child learns everything from the family because you're the first society the child comes across. Leave alone telling moral science stories, my dear friends. I know we don't have time for that. Let us not lie, at least in front of the child. The father is not even started by, sir, பாதி தூரத்துல இருக்க sir, தோ வந்துட்டேன் sir. வேண்டாமே. Accepting a mistake. Yes, இன்னைக்கு சாம்பார்ல உப்பு போடலப்பா, சாரிப்பா, தெரியாம பண்ணிட்டேன், நாளையில இருந்து ஒழுங்கா போடுறேன். Easy. Acceptance, not lying. Your child is modeling you. இது நம்ம எல்லாரும் பார்த்திருப்போம். அந்த குழந்தை வந்து அப்பா மாதிரி லுங்கி கட்டிக்கும், அப்பா மாதிரி பேப்பர் படிக்கிறேன், சிகரெட் பிடிக்கிறேன், அம்மா மாதிரி ஒரு துப்பட்டாவை எடுத்து போட்டுக்கிட்டு, இல்ல அந்த துப்பட்டாவே ஒரு முடி மாதிரி இப்படி வச்சுட்டு ரொம்ப அழகா she will try cooking and all that. But what are we teaching the child? You don't even have to sit the child and talk to the child and give her moral science because you don't have time. Neither do we know moral science stories, or the child is not willing to listen to us. Be it anything, but action. Action speaks more than words. நீங்க உண்மையா இருங்க. நீங்க உங்க வீட்டுல வேலை செய்யறவங்க கிட்ட மரியாதையா நடத்துங்க. வாங்கம்மா போங்கம்மான்னு சொல்லி பாருங்களேன். The child learns to respect. இதுக்கு தாத்தா வேண்டாம், பாட்டி வேண்டாம், moral science class வேண்டாம். ஆனா நான் இது எதையுமே செய்ய மாட்டேன். My child should be the best in class by education. My child should go abroad and earn in dollars or in pounds and take care of me at my old age. என்னையா அது? Totally contrast பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கிறோம். You teach the child the value of money, not of relationship. But you expect the child to understand relationship and respect you. We are giving a discrepant value. எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு, I am not what I am, but I want you to be the best. You're my child. So what will you see? Genetically, we can do lot of things, but understand everything is biologically ingrained. Genetically, what I get from my grandfather, what I get from my grandmother, from my father, my aunt, anybody, that is the biological. The social support comes final. Before that, there is a psychological understanding. How am I'm a sponge. Please understand. நீங்க என்ன கொட்டினாலும் நான் அதை அப்படியே எடுத்துக்குவேன். எனக்கு ஃபில்டர் எல்லாம் பண்ண தெரியாது. நீங்க பால் கொட்டினா எனக்கு ஃபுல்லா பால் இருக்கும். இங்கு கொட்டினீங்கன்னா நான் ஃபுல்லா இங்கா இருப்பேன். நான் ஒரு பிளாட்டிங் பேப்பர், நான் ஒரு ஸ்பாஞ்ச், அப்படியே உறிஞ்சிடுவேன். அப்புறம் நீங்க அதைத்தான் திரும்ப எடுப்பீங்க. நீங்க பாலை கொட்டிட்டு புளியும் போது அந்த ஸ்பாஞ்சில இருந்து தேனா வரணும்னா எப்படிங்க வரும்? வரவே வரும். சோ ஸ்கூல்ல மாரல் சயின்ஸ் கிளாஸ் வைங்க, வெரி குட், வைக்கலாம். ஆனா நம்ம இப்ப பிடி கிளாஸ்லயே மேக்ஸ் டீச்சருக்கு கொடுத்துருவோம், கடன் கொடுத்துருவோம். ஆனா நம்ம வந்து மெடல் வாங்கிட்டு வந்து ஆகணுமா? நீ வந்து மேக்ஸ் டீச்சர் எடுத்துக்குவாங்க, இல்ல கெமிஸ்ட்ரி மிஸ் எடுத்துக்குவாங்க. பிடி மிஸ் பாவம் வெறும் சப்ஸ்டியூட்டாவே போயிட்டு இருப்பாங்க ஒரு கிளாஸுக்கும். ஆனா ஒலிம்பிக்ஸ்ல இந்தியா மெடல் வாங்கலன்னா கல்விகளை ஊத்துவோம். எனக்கு தெரியல இது எப்படி நடக்கும். வாட் இஸ் சோ யூ ரீட், ரைட்? So you give the child the best and you will get the best. Similarly in school, if they can make the child talk, moral science class கூட தனியாவே வேண்டாம். ஒரு 5 minutes every day, let the child come up and say, this is what I saw today when I traveled. It's a rich experience. அதுக்கெல்லாம் டைம் இல்லைங்க. மார்க் வேணும், 100% ரிசல்ட். அகேன் பாலை ஊத்துவோம், வரும்போது தேனாரா பாயணும், இல்ல குப்பையை கொட்டுவோம், வரும்போது மாணிக்கமா வரணும். தெரியல இந்த லாஜிக், இந்த கனெக்ஷன் யாராவது கண்டுபிடிச்ச ஒரு சயின்டிஸ்ட் சொன்னாங்கன்னா kudos to them. That's just my take on it.
Correct, ma'am. Just as you say, learning begins at home. Anything begins at home. Like charity begins at home, learning begins at home. And yes, a large part of children are in school. So I think like a village, it requires a village to raise a child. So everyone is responsible, and of course, self-responsibility. That's great. We did have one more question from the audience. 2 questions which you've actually already answered. Whether somebody can be, whether maturing of mind is innate or learned, that has been answered. Whether it is spontaneous, someone wanted to know, is it spontaneous? Like, in the sense, if one is matured, then will it stop spontaneity? Do we have to keep adjusting to others? Will it kill our creativity? That is one question. So we would like you all to just answer that. Anyone? Bhavani sir, you could start.
That's an
off
excellent
here.
question.
See, one, I would say spontaneity is something that emerges out of a particular emotional need at that point in time. So it could be measured as a quick but your innate response to a particular situation. I might jump with joy when I see my daughter, and that is spontaneity, and that does not stop me from being mature. I would definitely jump. I mean, even when she's walking down, if there's a distance, I will be running towards her to hug her. So that's spontaneity. See, where is a question of maturity or creativity? It does not curb creativity. So we are saying that, see, how I conduct myself in a particular environment. Now, let us say that, I hear very painful news, especially when I'm, let's say, in the middle of a particular meeting. So, see, in my personal space, I would be sobbing. But then, say, in this particular space, the space does not permit me. I mean, say, I would have to excuse myself and say that, see, something, very significantly big has come. I might, see, at that point in time, deceit. I would say deceit is something that is used as a tool for pro-social and, say, pro-emotional behavior. I know that particular emotion is a fake. I know that emotion is wrong, but that emotion is relevant to that particular space. I am saying, say, this because all of us are confronted by this kind of a challenge. Let's say that would being mature mean that it stops from being who you are? No, it is not. So it doesn't stop anybody from being who they are. But if you say that, see, I was actually doing things which I understand was not right for a particular age or for a particular profile or a particular place, and they say that I've developed this art so that I don't behave like that anymore. So you're only adding value to what you do. It's not that you're removing that from the system. See, there are, see, my father always said, then this has been handed down. So you're always fighting the 6 enemies within, right? So it talks about kama, krodha, moha, lobha, mada, and matsarya. So lust, so rage, attachment, greed, intoxication, and procrastination. So these are the 6 things which are actually shaping a whole gamut of emotions that work around. And see, if we are able to regulate these 6 enemies within, I would say the kind of emotional responses that you would throw. Of course, yes, I fake. I mean, see, I will have to lie, but deceit is good. Certain times it saves grace. So you understand. So it is all right. So we will have to see. Let us not over intellectualize the way that we feel to a particular situation. So if a particular situation happens, ma'am nailed it. I mean, she said, see, how do I go ahead and say that I would not accept my mistake? Yes, I have to accept my mistake. That's a sign of maturity. See, and do you think that I'm beyond being a senior principal? I should not make any mistake. Sorry, I make a lot more mistakes than all of you put together. So, but see, the question is that the maturity comes in accepting that mistake and moving on. See, sometimes you accept it, but you don't act on it because you become super stupid because you have not learned from that experience. So you continue, it hits you a second time, it hits you a third time, it hits you a fourth time, and then you go ahead and realize. I would say this is it. See, it does not. So let us not be super worried about it.
Thank you. Napina madam, you want to say something on that?
Yes. Spontaneity, of course, has got nothing to stop you with. In fact, they will complement each other. My creativity grows with my spontaneity, or because I'm spontaneous, I'm able to think and talk or think and react immediately. So it is more of a complement to each other. It will definitely not counter each other. And creativity is something that all of us have, but only thing is we are not using it. We always like to follow the footsteps of somebody. We don't like the road less traveled. எதுக்குப்பா வம்பு? ஆட்டம் அந்த மாதிரியே போயிடலாம். எல்லாரும் ஐடி எடுக்கிறாங்க, நானும் ஐடி எடுக்கிறேன். எல்லாரும் மெடிசன் எடுக்கிறாங்க, நானும் மெடிசன். ஐயோ இப்ப மெடிசன் எடுக்க கூடாதா? ஓகே, ஐ வில் switch over to commerce. So we don't have a thought process where we can take something. அந்த risk taking behavior வந்து எப்பவுமே நெகட்டிவா தான் பார்க்கணும். At times risk taking in a positive sense is also there. It's okay, I will try it. It is not possible to shift ஒரு ப்ரொஃபஷன்ல இருந்தனானா I will throw it and I will take a risk and try something and venture something new because I have the urge or the thirst to learn something. That can happen with creativity. இந்த பாட்டி கிரியேட்டிவா இருந்தாங்க. குழந்தை தோசை சாப்பிடலன்னா அந்த பாட்டி வந்து 1 2 3 போட்டு தோசையை சாப்பிட வச்சாங்க, மேக்ஸும் சொல்லி கொடுத்தாங்க. ஆனா அந்த 1 2 3ல தோசை ஊத்தலாம் நமக்கு இப்ப டைம்லாம் கிடையாது. We not bothered about creativity. We are more bothered about intellectual. We are only looking for outcome. ஆனா we want everything. அதுதான் எனக்கு புரிய மாட்டேங்குது. எப்படி இதெல்லாம் வரும்? நான் அதை என்ரிச்சே பண்ண மாட்டேன். அப்படி ஒண்ணு இருந்தாலும் பேசாம அதெல்லாம் இப்ப பேசாத, அதெல்லாம் பெரியதன பேச்சு, அதெல்லாம் உனக்கு வேண்டாம், படிக்கிறதுல பார். அந்த குழந்தைக்கு படிப்பு வரலங்க. It's got a lot of other talents. No, but I want you to be class first. Every child, sir, Bhavani sir, I think you must only talk about this. Every child should get first rank. எப்படி சார் முடியும்? யார் தான் கிளாப் பண்றது ரிப்போர்ட் கார்டு வாங்கல? அதெல்லாம் எனக்கு கவலை இல்லை. Every child should be school first. Every child should be school topper. எனக்கு எப்பவுமே I always had a thirst. இந்த ஸ்கூல் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வராங்கன்னு பேப்பர்ல எல்லாம் வருது இல்ல, அவங்க கொஞ்சம் லாஞ்சிடியூடலா ஸ்டடி பண்ணி பார்க்கணும்னு பார்ப்பேன். ஒரு 18 வருஷம் கழிச்சு நீ எப்படி இருக்க? அதாவது எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு இவெல்லாம் சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லாவே இருக்க மாட்டான், ஆடு மாடுதான் மேய்க்க லாய்க்குன்னு இன்னைக்கு ரொம்ப சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கான் நான் பாக்குறேன். இவனையா நம்ம சொன்னோம்? அவன் தான் நம்மளை விட புத்திசாலியா இருக்கான். So the creativity and spontaneity go hand in hand, but we are trying to pull each other and say no, don't be creative. That is not required now, but unfortunately we need to learn that. Certain things like I'm just probably moving because I was tempted to answer Divya's question, gender and maturity. This is something like that, spontaneity and creativity. Thanks for the question, Divya. It has got nothing to do with gender and maturity. Unfortunately, it is grained in your brain. Genetically, it is ingrained. As a girl, you are supposed to do tick box, check box. இதெல்லாம் நீ பண்ணணுமா? வேற வழி கிடையாது. நீ பொண்ணா பிறந்துட்டு அதனால நீ காஃபி போடணும். அதே பையன் யூஎஸ் போய் அவன் தனியா காஃபி போடுவான். அவன் இந்தியா வந்த உடனே அம்மா காஃபி அப்படி உடனே அந்த அம்மா புள்ள பாவமா வந்து I don't know what is happening. Why are we, இது genderoட, it is brain, yeah. All of us have brain. My maturity is in my thought process, not in my gender. But we have tuned our people to think this is how girls need to be. You need to be gender oriented. Again, 18 for girl is because she's physically mature. We thought the girl need not be intellectually mature. அது வந்து அந்த காலம் பொண்ணுங்க வந்து அடுப்புதுனா போதும், பொண்ணுக்கு குழந்தை ஒரு ரீப்ரொடக்டிவ் பார்ட்டா தான் நம்ம கேர்ள்ஸை பார்த்தாங்க. சோ அந்த பிசிக்கல் மெச்சூரிட்டியா தான் மென்டல் மெச்சூரிட்டியா இருந்தாங்க. அவங்க வீட்டுக்குள்ளே இருந்தாங்க, ஹஸ்பண்ட் கிட்ட ஐடியாஸ் நிறைய பேர் இருந்தாங்க, நிறைய we left lot of people who had the potential by putting them behind the room by saying you can only cook or you're supposed to cook. You know the boy cannot cry. Why? Emotions are common for you and me, but why that fellow? He can't cry, he cannot do anything that he likes. Cook பண்ண போனா இல்ல let me clean the room na ஆம்பளை பையன் நீ தொடப்பம் எடுக்கலாமாப்பா, நீ வாமா நீ வந்து பெருக்கு. We are trying to fit them into a picture or ஒரு மாடல் வச்சுக்கிட்டு நீ இதுக்குள்ளதான் இருக்கணும். This is the framework that we have and we are trying to bring in gender into maturity. No, it has got absolutely no connection because your thought process has got no gender. Brain-க்கு gender எல்லாம் கொடுக்க ஆரம்பிச்சோம்னா நம்மளோட மோசமான people கிடையாது. I've seen men crying to me by saying, madam, வீட்ல யார் முன்னாடி அழுக முடியாது மேடம், நீங்க ஒரு ஆள் தான் அழுதாலும் பேசாம கேட்டுக்கிறீங்க. எனக்கு அழுகையே வரலன்னா கவலையா இருக்கு, பொம்பளையா இருந்து நான் அழுகணுமே, நான் அழுக மாட்டேங்கிறேனே. Because this is what the society is forcing on us or imposing on us by saying this is how you have to do. Creativity again, your society thinks, what is creativity? I must invent something. You know, I cannot play music like somebody to say that is my creativity. I cannot cook a new dish and post it because இதெல்லாம் சமையல்காரன் செய்யற வேலை, இதெல்லாம் நீ செய்யலாமா. ஆனா சாப்பிட உட்கார்றது அந்த அளவுதான் இருக்கும். யார் வேண்டாங்கிறாங்களோ அவங்க தான் உட்கார்ந்து சாப்பிடுவாங்க. We are not able to appreciate the creativity on a child because we have a lot of other expectations that my child has to be this, my child has to be that. My expectations are being forced on the young minds or on anybody for that matter. Even when you get married, you know, my wife has to be like this. My husband has to be like this. We are all socially tuned to a lot of expectations and we call it as maturity, unfortunately, which shows we are not mature. The man should be better qualified than the female if he has to marry her. Our double degree vachirukka, ego vandrum. Okay, fine, agree. ஒரு ரூபாயாவது அவளை விட நிறைய சம்பாதிக்கணும், இல்லைன்னா அவ தலைநிமிர்ந்து ஆடிடுவா. Again, this is not what the girl did. It was ingrained in her mind and his mind. So, if we are maturing by age, we should not have done this. Unfortunately, we are not doing that. That is what I think when it comes to spontaneity and creativity and gender and maturity. This was a reaching question in me, and thank you, Divya, for throwing that question. Thank you for giving me the time to talk on that.
Thank you, madam. I think it's 8 o'clock. We'll sum it up fast. I have one thing I wanted to say. Maturity can suppress taking control of your life and thought. A person, if you're not matured enough, you can allow someone else to take control of your life. That is one point I would like to say, but it's not answered now, and we don't have much time about that now. And also listening, I think that can take into a separate session by itself. I think we'll have a chapter 2 for this, perhaps, if there is more interest in this line. And we are going to have, we are thinking of having monthly events in different aspects, different things. Please check the website and put your inputs and add more topics to, the input from people only will know what is interested. So accordingly, we can plan events like this. So ultimate idea is everybody should get, it's a sharing process only. It's only a sharing process we thought of by discussion. Anyone else have any important questions? Otherwise, we'll take it up for summation. And Divya, you have anything to say before summing up?
I just wanted to quickly add one point. Na my life la first rank vaanginadhe kadiyadu. That was one thing in life la edume na first rank. Awards and all that is different, but class la first rank vaanginadhe kadiyadu. And I used to be that Tare Zameen Par kid madri. When I see something, ooh, light, madri na. So mom was very right. And ninga longitudinal pata, I know my classmates and I know where they are. I don't want to comment on it, but she was right. I just wanted to leave it there. And the creativity point, I just wanted to add just one point. I kind of don't see the connection at all in my mind, at least, because maturity is my personality. Creativity is just me being myself. So maybe I have my own safe spaces where I'm completely having myself create. Like, for example, when I build products, when I build things, that is my creativity's expression. So the things I built is like, for example, I built a smart fabric company. So literally I plugged a chair into a video game and basically you can drive a car just by moving on it. It was just a crazy thought, but does that invalidate my maturity? I don't know. So the connection, so I think creativity and all of that, it's just a free flow. And the personality need not necessarily have anything to do with creativity at all, is my take on it. But maybe people are saying on the suppression, like ma'am said, when I'm so sure of myself, why does it matter how people perceive me? In the sense, in that angle of creativity, like the Tare Zameen Par kid, I used to go to my physics teacher and ask, light mind. But I never got a first rank. So all the metric system, whatever school had, I don't call myself successful. But at the same time, I just see that I just had fun in school. It was just, wow, it's really interesting. I love learning. the numbers, whatever it came, I think my parents were also cool. Because fail so I think that's what I wanted to add, and I wrap it up. Maturing mind, I think wisdom is very different. I think ma'am was right. Wisdom is a completely different word. And the maturity oda eppadi correlate agudungiradhu was a very complex thing. So I'm just going to leave it there and probably wrap this up. That's my summary.
Thank you. Thank you, Divya. Thank you, Divya.
Bala, see, quite a number of takeaways, I would say, from the panelists, from Ganesh, from, say, Garg sir, and a lot. So I've just put this as a summary. See if it is okay. Say, according to the discussions that have emerged, say, one was assuming responsibility for actions. So be acutely aware of privileges and responsibilities. Demonstrate empathy and care, ownership for action and being accountable, being courageous. So understanding and accepting vulnerability and limitations, that's say mistakes, I mean, you don't have to be worried about that. Setting boundaries, discriminating from what needs are and what wants are and what greed is. Say ability to evaluate situation and trends and consequences that might emerge because of a particular action or situation. And these are the some of the takeaways, say, which I have written down from today's discussion, saying that if we come to understand what are the traits of maturity that emerges from this discussion, these are some of what I've grabbed. I might have missed few, but then I have quickly grabbed down what people said. So thank you. So say my own perception, and ma'am would understand. So you have a confirmation bias, you have a perception bias. So Divya brought in a very different dimension to this entire discussion, I would say. So in also trying to understand, get into Divya's shoes to try and say, what is this relevance Divya is talking about with respect to emergent spaces? So the last thing that emerged was more to do with gender neutrality and how we can actually even reframe our language. So if it is anything sensitive, the child is a she. So if it is action, the child is a he. I mean, these are things I would say that because of this particular discussion, I might quickly think about it and say, okay, the next time I'm going to flip my own gender biases in some meaningful way. So this is interesting, Divya. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. It's so much, sir. You need to leave some for the Mr. Ganesh to sum it up. You have done the summation.
Yes, I did feel it being infringed upon too.
I'm sorry if I don't want to hijack what you have.
Not at all.
See, this is I mean, very interesting for me. Very interesting for me.
Yes.
Excuse me. There's one more hand raised by Raji Subramaniam. I think we can take it up later after the meeting is over. We can take it up offline. Take it up, Ganesh.
Yes. So it's really been first when Bala mentioned about the subject, I said, I mean, is it going to be adequate for discussion? But then after sitting through the event, I feel lots of information has come out, which is really useful for us. So it's been extremely thought-provoking, and especially for people of our age group who are father-in-law or something like that, it gives us a different perspective and makes us more contemporary. Ability to handle modern current situations is far greater if we think on the lines that have been discussed. What struck me really was a few important points. Napinai ma'am said, instead of teaching moral science in class or telling the children what to do, what not to do, set an example by your behavior. That is the best lesson. So that will lead to maturity. That's a very, very important point, is what I said. Be honest with your children and with your family members, and allow the child to express. That's absolutely essential, because due to our prejudices, we ask them to stay quiet or try to impose our point of view. So allow the child to express. And there's absolutely no doubt that the child will come out with something quite different and meaningful. As to the question whether maturity kills spontaneity, I think all of you have very, very clearly answered that point, that it does not. And in fact, it is complementary. Your ability to handle situations in a more mature manner, in a manner where you do not come to the wrong judgments, helps you to helps you to augment creativity unhindered by wrong prejudices. So as Bhavani Shankar sir said, Kama, Krodha, etc., etc. That is, and if you had asked me, and if I was the panel member, I would have said that is the crux of the issue. If we are able to refrain from passing judgments and assessing a situation as it ought to be assessed, and not imposing our prejudices on a particular circumstance, that is maturity. And that is what the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is all about. Sankhya Yoga. You must refrain from the opposites of likes and dislikes, hatred and desire. So that is absolutely the crux of the whole concept of maturity. And with respect to gender maturity, I think ma'am said very clearly, maturity is a thought process, and I think we have to underline that very clearly. Thought process, and it has nothing to do with gender or any other presumed mindset. So it is a process, as Bhavani Shankar said very, very aptly in the very beginning. It is a continuum. It is a continuous improvement in our thought process. And to put it in mathematical context, it's an algorithm. So every time you come across a situation, you refrain from passing an emotional judgment and assess it in a more practical manner, and then come to a informed decision. So that is an algorithm in a sense. So as ma'am said, mind has no gender, and stereotyping is not maturity. We can be very sure that when in the societal context, when you hear people saying, if this person belongs to a particular caste or a particular country or a particular race or a particular place, he or she is bound to behave in a particular manner, or age or gender. That is certainly not maturity, and ma'am said very clearly that it is not maturity, and that is very, very crucial as a society which is young society, which is going to have a leadership position in the entire world. Because every day we see in the papers that, you know, this community person did this and that community person did this, and we are getting constantly programmed the wrong way. If we are able to stop stereotyping these things, I'm sure we will be able to achieve far more. So so maturity is pro-social. That's a very important point that Bhavani Shankar sir said, pro-social. Now, there is a slight gray area where Divya brought out, because pro-social in which context? Now, coming to the office in a full sleeve shirt and is pro-social 20-30 years ago. I remember in the US, people cannot come to office without a tie. Now it's completely different thanks to the IT sector. So the concept of pro-social is changing. So to ask whether something is pro-social or not is an important question that we have to raise. And the answer perhaps would be harmony. Can we maintain harmony in all these circumstances, irrespective of what it is? If we are able to maintain that harmony, what is harmony? Not hurting somebody. If we are not able to hurt somebody, then there is harmony, then it is pro-social, and it certainly requires maturity, and it also augments maturity. So with these few words, I thank Napinai Madam, Bhavani Shankar ji, and Divya so much for it. Was truly an eye-opener. And the last but not the least, Bala, who has taken such a great initiative. And this is a very important initiative, because such valuable discussions when people undertake, it brings out very important points which people who want to learn, people who want to improve, not only because they are young, but even if they are elderly, they want to improve themselves and transform. This fulfills that particular process. A society has to introspect and has to transform. Thank you so much, sirs and madams.
Thank you, Jnaneshwar. Thank you, Jnaneshwar. Thank you, the panelists. It was an excellent evening. I hope everybody got, as Bhavani Shankar, Samita up, and Jnanesh summed up. It's been excellent. And we have my co-founder, Mr. Mayappan, is on the line. Mayappan, please come in. Mayappan, take it up. He is a scientist from Johns Hopkins. Divya Sonamari, he never got first rank in school, college, but he used to lecture the PhD professors when he was studying there as a NP in Hindi. Mayappan, he's a MRI scientist and he's one of the topmost in the world, but he's quieter. Mayappan, please take it up, Mayappan.
Yeah, I'm trying to be very matured. So thank you for the introduction, Anand. Regarding the first rank, I always took pride in the first rank person appreciating me. To me, that was much more valuable. So usually the first rank students will appreciate me for being their friend. So there are some times when I had the opportunity of becoming a first rank person. At that time, the first rank student, who usually be the first rank student, he came and told me that news. Mayappan, I'm so thrilled to let you know that this time you won, you got the first rank. So I think that is, that kindness. I think that our society, our Tamil culture has impacted that kindness, that we grow together in a society where we try to educate students without looking at whether they are the brightest or the dumbest. So we kind of mingle as friends. We were being together. Just as I was the friend of the brightest student, I will be the friend of a student who may not know how to solve some mathematical problem. That's how I ended up becoming Anand's friend. So Anand and I used to solve mathematical problems. So Anand will tell me, Mayappa, teach me just one approach to solve this problem. Don't teach me multiple ways. I get confused when I go to the exam. So it's kind of lifting the society as a whole, not as just individual. So like that saying that goes, if you want to go further, go with together. If you want to be the first, then go alone, right? So we all, in our society, we always try to go together. So usually they give this example of the crabs in a basket. So if there is a crab, if it's a kind of a basket with crabs from Japan, they all crawl all over the place. But if it's a basket from India, each crab will pull each other. So the crabs stay together inside the basket. So that's a very good example. Actually, Aishwarya Rai quoted that basket analogy when she said she wanted to become a brightest actress in Hollywood because she was getting an opportunity to be in IMAX movie and James Bond movie. So she said a lot of people are trying to prevent that from happening. It's good that happened, that they tried to pull her down because she's even more popular now than if she had left, because there are many other actresses who came to US in the name of acting in Hollywood movies before her. They are also Miss World, Miss Universe, but we don't know where they are. But Aishwarya still bears the name. So the society brings that culture together. We try to wrap them together. You can call that in one way, we are not letting them go away, but the other benefit of that is we try to keep them together. We go together, or we, like they say, we swim together or die together. So that's kind of the philosophy of our culture. And from a maturity versus age, the initial discussion that I had with Anand was more biologically centered. But I'm glad to see that this took a more like a cultural turn, the real maturity that I was having in mind when I was proposing the title, and it was more like the biological process of maturation, which is exactly what happens. It's a kind of the animals, if you look at them, do they mature? They don't mature in literal sense as we as human beings, but we evolved from animals. So the instinct in us is the fight or flight instinct, right? So that's kind of the response. So when a given a situation, whether we fight again, try to fight it, or flight, take it flight. So this is kind of the process that develops early on. So when we are a child, our instincts are totally irrational. So it's kind of an irrational thought process. The only thing living organism try to do is to escape and live. So that's how what we are programmed to do. So that they call the amygdala, the part of the brain that takes control of the whole action, and it kind of triggers the response, and we assess the situation whether we can fight or we take a flight. So at that time, normal rational thinking doesn't play a role. As we age, so what happens around the time of the adolescence, that's when the connection between this amygdala structure and the upper cortex develops stronger and stronger, and it becomes much more interconnected. So we tend to have the previous experiences giving feedback. So the amygdala kind of creates a response. Oh, okay, if we look at a snake when as a child, we may just go and grab it. And then as we become aged, we know what the consequences are. So that memory helps us to protect ourselves, but at the same time, it can create a problem. It can create, we can imagine problems that do not exist. And I think the best song that describes it is in the film Kulandayum Deivamum. Wali has written them, Kulandayumum Deivamum Gunathal Ondru, Kutrangalai Marandabidum Manathal Ondru, Nadandadaye Ninaipadhan Tuyaram Yendru, Nyanigalum Medegalum Sonnar Endru. So that kind of summarizes the whole. Nadandadaye Ninaikiradhan Namlukku Tuyaram. As we age, everything that happened, we could not forget. So that becomes the Tuyaram of it. But as குழந்தைகளுக்கு அந்த மனசு கிடையாது, நடந்தது அப்படியே மறந்துடுவாங்க. They live in the present, they don't go back to the past. So that as we transition from childhood to adulthood, the selfishness within us slightly grows. We think too much, we try to optimize everything for our best benefit that may not work, that we may not even care about others. If it doesn't happen, as long as we are fine, that's fine for us, right? So that selfishness, that அதுதான் கள்ளமில்லா குழந்தை பணம்னு சொல்றது. ஸோ அதுலதான் அவர் வாலி குழந்தைய கடவுளுக்கு ஒப்பிட்டு, அது குழந்தைகள் தான் வளர்ந்து பெரியவர்களானார், அந்த பெரியவர்கள் தான் கோபத்தினால் சிறியவரானார். So what really, because we get angered, tempered, so that kind of summarizes the circle, right? The குழந்தையும் தெய்வம், that song is a very uniquely describes the problem, what happens as we age. So it's a two complementary process. In one way, we want to be in the fight or flight instinct. We want to be more calculative, rational thinking. At the same time, we don't want to remember too many things from the past that can deprive us or pull us down. And also you mentioned about this parenting that we try to, in India, the way we I think Dr. said, and she was mentioning that how we don't even train them, but then we ask them to get awards and etc. So it's in our culture, it's a negative encouragement approach, negative aspiration and negative encouragement. So if a student does 98%, gets 98% in math, the parents will say, why didn't you work a little bit harder and get that 2%, right? So it's a kind of a negative encouragement. And in the US culture, it's the other way. It's like in Western culture, if the person got only 80%, they will say, oh, that's a fantastic score you have got. So it's a positive encouragement of philosophy, but they both work in a different way. The negative encouragement is the one that gives us some kind of a moral consciousness, right? So we try to keep ourselves under check. So even though we try to achieve more, the objective is not to get that 100%, but you try to realize that you cannot reach it. But in the Western culture, they may do that encouragement, but at one point it can backfire. So people can do certain mistakes. So it both helps in a different ways from the point of view of education. So I think I'm going overboard, Anand. You can interrupt me.
Go ahead. Nobody is objecting.
Nobody is objecting. So yeah, so from a kind of a cultural point of view, the way the Western philosophy works, that's the reason why they go and get awards, right? Or for that matter, in Olympics get the medals. But if you look at every one of them, they will have a social drama. So you talked about women, and in this Olympics, women's role is even kind of questioned in a very more appropriate way, because the American gymnast, she couldn't compete. I mean, she just pulled off because she had an emotional problem. Because because the expectation pressure becomes so high. So the gender bias happens because of the expectation. Women try to perceive themselves as fitting into a format because that's what they think the society will accept them. Men doesn't have that bondage. Men kind of looks at whether they do right or wrong. They just have a much more relaxed approach. Whereas for a girl, she has to always meet that expectation, but that expectation she herself may have set. It's like she has to be so this girl, this gymnast, there was so much expectation that she will do triple somersault, or she was even going for quadruple, because every time she was breaking her own record. And that pressure itself puts her in a situation that she just pulled out in the last minute. I said, I'm not going to. So it's in the gendered sense, it's more based on a boy he doesn't care about what others think of the boy, but a girl does feel about it. So if somebody says something negative about the girl takes it much more personally and gets hurt by it, but the way boy takes it, he just lives more like a take it, forget it approach. So that may be something to do with biology, the way the society, the actions have consequences for a girl much more than for a boy. So let me just check if any other points. Yes, the pro-social, so that was touched upon about the dresses, that how IT student, so that was created by a movement that was entirely Steve Jobs phenomena. So Steve Jobs was more of a follower of Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. So he was trying to get that mass appeal, because at that time he was the one fighting against the corporate culture. So it's not that it happens naturally. In everything, we as in India, we try to follow the culture that imitates other cultures. So it's not something that that free society, everything happened naturally in the right direction, but it's because always it's something that is somebody who creates that moral dilemma. When Steve Jobs tried to do it, he was creating, if you do something different, people like it. So his whole philosophy, Steve Jobs and Apple, is think different. So whatever is the convention of the society, think something different from that. How far it will go, it can backfire again. So think different. So it has in India, we don't develop so many technologies. The reason is we have this moral confounding factor. If it were for Indian engineers, Facebook would not have happened. So Facebook was developed more like a product to rate girls, how their appearances are. In a college, they were developing web pages where they will analyze the appearance of a girl and give her how much mark that girl is better than this girl. So is it something that we will do? Morally, we won't. So there are certain boundaries we won't cross, and that limits our creativity. We can call it creativity, but it's also a good thing. So many of the problems that students today have on social media, in which even in US, teenage girls are committing suicide much faster rate, teenage boys, teenage girls, is because of this social pressure. So because they get bullied on the social media. So it is something that we always have protected in our culture. We try to protect a girl and a boy, because during that adolescent period, they can take things too personally. And then if they don't we don't come to know about it, that flight or fight instinct can turn inwards. So, and they can end their life. So the best way to carry the message to the young children about what is maturity is to just explain to them that this is just nothing but a biological process in the brain development, that the internal wiring takes place. So they don't think it as a self problem. oftentimes we think mind is something about ourself. It's not exactly ourself. It's a reflection of our consciousness. It's kind of an illusion. What we think mind is, it's a chemical process in which the brain wiring happens. So you talked about gray matter. The other important part of it is the white matter that interconnects the various parts. The white matter tracks are the one that develops over the age as the child grows from 2 to 3 years is when we have this amygdala structures develop, but over the period, the internal wiring takes place. And you mentioned about this taxi drivers, how they map. It's actually biologically, boys are different from girls. Girls' left brain doesn't come pre-programmed, and whereas boys' left brain comes from pre-programmed to locate for navigation, which they think is because the hunter period, men were always doing the hunting, and because of that, men has a better terrain navigational skill, so they can associate between north, south, east, west much more clearly than girls. But girls, on the other, have an advantage with language. They can learn multiple languages very fast, and that's because that left part of the brain comes completely unwired, and they can easily program it for learning languages, which boys cannot do. So a girl can learn multiple languages and speak in a good accent, but a boy will take it down. But on the contrary, the boy will have this navigational ability. So this is all internal wirings, and even the kind of control ability comes from the process of maturity comes from that wiring connection. So if the children come to know everything is a consequence of the biology, they may have a much more practical approach and don't consider themselves as a product of their mistakes. Because nowadays what happens is everybody with kind of blame it on the child. You are not maturing in fast, right? And that puts them in a kind of a defensive mode, and they make even more mistakes. So instead of letting that go that way, if you just explain, okay, this is the process that takes, maybe it takes a little longer in you, or if you just understand. So don't look at yourself as from internal point of view, project yourself outside, look at in your mirror and see yourself as a product of a biology. And maybe that maturation process is different in you based on your experience. So let it develop the way. So that will give them a much more outside view of themselves. So, and they can, so that, because the whole thing now is the rapid pace of competition, right? So that's why we are taking out things. Divya mentioned about stories. Stories have a powerful effect. Our culture always relied on needi kathaigal, right? So the divide, how things can, people always try to divide and conquer us. And those are simple stories that conveys the powerful social messages. And those things may have gone. We cannot change it back. We always, Thiruvalluvar says, so no matter what, you may be the brightest person, you may be the most sophisticated person, but if you don't know how to live with the rest of the world in compatible way, then your knowledge is useless. So that means it's not that we create our own niche area of highly bright students, brilliant students, but they don't know how to mingle with others. We cannot let that way. Whatever mistakes that are happening because of the exposure to internet, we have to kind of assimilate and make sure that our society doesn't degrade from its fundamental basic structure. So that is much more tangible approach than to protect them because during early 2000, that's when the internet was coming into India. People were trying to have some kind of a network to protect children from getting exposed. We could do that only to some extent, but beyond certain point, it's rather better to be exposed and then treat them to what is good and bad, rather than trying to protect them. And the only thing that comes back to, if at all, there is only one factor that needs to be reinforced with children is treat them everyone with equal respect. So inequality is the main issue, whether it is United States, whether it is Western country, inequality is the one fundamental burning problem. So as long as we realize, so we consider India is like a diversity, right? So we consider unity in diversity. Technically, it's the other way. It's a diversity within unity, but no, doesn't matter which way we look at it. So the inequality, if we can appreciate everyone, if a child can appreciate the other child's point of view and understand and develop a respect, no matter of skin color difference or racial difference or religious differences, then we will have a much more compatible society. So let me end. I think I went overboard on it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayappan. Since it's time, we'll close the meeting, but we'll continue. Whoever wants to continue can continue. Officially, let's close the meeting now. And there is one more person who wants to raising a question for a long time. But since it's 2 hours now, we'll close the meeting officially. But still, it's open. So I'm closing on the meeting officially. Divya wanted to leave. She's got another meeting lined up. Divya, thanks for being here. You want to say something before we leave?
Thank you so much, sir. I just wanted to personally thank ma'am, sir, and everybody here. Learned a lot, ma'am. Loved the take on gender. And thanks so much, Mayappan, sir, for pointing the spatiotemporal perspective on the brain, because I do agree. I mean, I completely agree. I think we might have missed it, and you kind of like zeroed in on that. Thanks, sir. And Bhavani Shankar, sir, thank you so much for the perspective. And it takes a great deal more to actually interact with our generation and say that the gender aspect, you know, I will make note of things. I think that means a lot. So thank you so much. And Bala, sir, thank you so much for the opportunity. And Jnanish, sir, thanks for the summarization and the Steve Jobs quote. Thank you so much. And really, sir, I wish I had more time. It's just that I had scheduled another call. I had to prepare for it. So that's why. So sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Divya.
Bye,
Thank you, Divya, for being here.
Yeah.
Carry on with your work and we'll catch up later. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Be ready
Sure,
for a few more
geek on sessions,
later.
definitely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
So the meeting is officially closed, but whoever wants to stay, please stay back. There are one more. Raji, she's been asking for a long time that she wants to ask a question. Raji, come in and take the question.
Thank you so much, Uncle, for the opportunity. So, like, I just wanted to say one line, like, whatever I'm feeling for the past 2 hours, it's so good, so great listening to all of the elder people talking about maturity. But for me, I feel like being raw is very difficult rather than getting matured. So, maturing, in the name of maturing, people are becoming so rigid is what I feel. So like, yeah, maturity is good and things are very right. But as technology improves and so many things are happening, in the name of maturity, people are becoming so rigid. That's one point. Like,
The line got cut. Yeah, I agree with what she says, you know. Once you're mature, you think, I know everything, attitude is there. As a child, we want to know everything. As a mature, when we consider ourselves, we're not mature. But when we consider ourselves mature, we have the attitude of, I know everything. And that is exactly what Raji was also trying to say. Yes, I agree with you, Raji.
Lovely listening to you about this gender topic, ma'am. I really wanted to talk about it because people so long saying about no, women are meant to be in kitchen and some, but actually speaking, like little look back, it is something like it is not that way. Women are doing everything, so men are just meant to go out, hunt and bring things to home, whereas a woman is the person who has done everything to the family. So when we understand the perspective behind it, the nuance is like it's a I could say it's a very thin line that we need to understand about the gender. Women are like, no, it's not even called as maturity, rather like she is the person who has brought the entire family into light. And men can go out, do anything, get the money, but woman is the person who made it like home and beautiful for every single person, and it has not changed even in 2021, I presume. And Dr. Jnani, sir, I'm sorry for the name if I'm mispronounced. Yeah, he said something like Western culture, people have to go out only with the tie on and the suit and other things. True. In such case, what happened in the name of Westernization, we all brought into a culture. See, I'm 90s. So like I have seen growing up this person like Kutral Ishwaran. So people who are like very much interested in extracurricular activities, I'm going a little away from the topic, but I wanted to. Kutral Ishwaran. So if even if people are interested in the extracurricular activities, they wanted to go. But as we are talking about this long vision, what happened to Kutral Ishwaran after 10 years is like, he has like no finance, so no career. So when you think about that perspective, what happens apparently is that India, in the name of technology, it has grown really well, but we have completely lost in the part of whatever we are good at. So in such case, students are all focused to become a corporate member. So they train themselves, and teachers, parents, apparently everybody has come into the picture, and they started training the kids. And everybody, as Napanai madam talking about it, she said like everybody wanted to secure first rank. Everybody wanted to top. So in such case, what happens is that we are all like becoming slave to somebody. I wanted to use the word because we are all working for somebody. We have been trained in such way. Rather, like, how many entrepreneurs or how many people who wanted to do something else rather than studying? That is a big question mark. But all this happened just because in the name of maturity, so much of rigidity and focus have turned into one side, and every person wanted to run for a work and do something. So we have, I think the baseline is completely little shaken. So as Dr. Meyyappan sir talking about it, I felt like women and men, it is about anatomy. It is not about something like, no, it's like women are capable of doing only that. It is not that way. It is the lobe, which is the anterior lobe and other things, frontier lobe. So that is different for men and women. It is not something about women are meant only for that and men are not. So it's not that way. So I do not know exactly how to explain about it, but it is basically biology, and it is nothing to do with men and women, girl or boy. As like, no, everybody says guys, boys, men can take things little easily. It's only because of the anatomy and biology and nothing else. Thank you so very much. Sure.
Can I respond, please? Yeah. Now, if somebody is becoming rigid because they think that they are mature, it is a wrong perception. Maturity cannot be rigidity. If somebody is rigid and thinking I am mature, therefore I am rigid, that's not maturity. That has nothing to do with maturity. And I mean that's I think it's quite obvious. So to presume that maturity, that rigidity is maturity, and confuse one with the other is confusion, not assessment of the fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Ganeshwar and Raji, I mean, say this is a very interesting take, and it is leading me into see a very different dimension, say knowledge and knowledge claims. So I would say that it's very interesting. I mean, say how see the knowledge claims happen, and so it is to understand why you know what you know and how you know what you know. So if we go back and try and understand it by sound reasoning with all the other ways of knowing, we would possibly come to a hypothesis which is more real in the context. I would say yes, it's lovely to take on, but it's such a very different dimension of thought. So Gyan put it saying that, see, maturity is just otherwise. I mean, maturity may not be rigidity at all. Maturity might mean absolute flexibility in a different context. So we really need to contextualize these discussions. And I feel what you have asked there, it's a beautiful discussion on trying to understand epistemic, say, basis of construct of knowledge or information. So that I would say is possibly another day's discussion.
Okay, understandable, sir.
It's lovely. I mean, I greatly value your question. So it's really nice that it emerged as a discussion point.
Yeah. Yes.
PhD was doctor. She's in biology, PhD. Chemistry.
The risk taking.
One more subject I have in mind was for the future one, beyond the fifth sense. It's going to be really interesting because it's going to be continuation of this. So beyond the fifth sense. We'll have it in the due course. Anything else panelists want to say, and anyone else on the audience want to say?
So this point of the risk taking, I think it was brought up quite a few times that we Indians don't try to be entrepreneurs, and we don't try to break anything, barriers. It's something different. It's not that we don't know how to break barriers. We don't know. It's not that we don't know how to be an entrepreneur. Our priorities are culturally completely different. We expect the children to get married at the right age to produce children. So it's a generational continuity, which is a kind of a bondage that Western cultures don't necessarily follow. So in our culture, in India, if you take that kind of an approach that we always try to look forward to this continuity in generation, it has helped us to achieve our goals in the long run. So if you go back 2000 years back, we will still be the prominent country in the world. We may not be the top country like Greek, Egypt were at that time. We never reached the top of any international standards at any point of time, but we never went to the bottom too. Greek may be the great country at that time, but now they're in economic distress. Egypt was in reaching the peak, but now we don't know where it is, right? So every country reaches its limit at one point. German was in 20th century, they were trying to be the superhuman beings of the world. They achieve for it and then they fall apart, right? So every country goes through that cycle, but in India, our focus always has been to maintain our continuity over the tradition. So we try to, and it is because of that pressure, we cannot take that risk, right? So it's the same fight or flight instinct. If you look at the stories of everyone, whether it is Microsoft or Apple, they go through that tremendous kind of check against major corporate companies, and for which they jeopardize. Now, Bill Gates, after so many years of success, is divorcing his wife. So what is the moral in that story? So would you say a multi-billionaire, they have something in life missing that they have to go for it, file for a divorce? So we don't let that happen in our society. So our society, we try to give certain things as a highest priority. It may not be the achievement in technological front, it may not be the achievement in the intellectual frontiers, but it is an achievement over generations can fulfill, right? So we like our window of achievement is much wider. So we try to maintain that continuity of tradition, continuity of generations, and that changes our priority. So in each generation, we achieve a little bit more. That's all. So each children achieves a little bit more than their parents. They may not leapfrog in a giant way, but at least they progress. So we keep that fundamental emphasis on mathematics and science. So we still consider us the best students in the world, competing alongside with the culture gives certain abilities. So our focus always has been on those kind of fundamental values at minimum. So we don't fall down. Even if we don't rise to the top, it's okay, but we don't fall down. That's the reason why most of them end up, it's unfortunate thing, but that's the way. I mean, we produce in IITs, we produce so many brilliant students, but then when I see them that they go and work for Facebook, it kind of hurts our feelings, right? So why you produce one of the brilliant students that can do mathematical problems and physics problems so well, but then finally they won't go and end up working in Facebook because Facebook pays them more? We don't have to worry about it. But the way I look at it, okay, if that is the expectation we have, we can duck and go. I mean, maybe that children will do something better. So that's all we have. We have to be always, if I had to say the Vadivelu joke, build up kudukramo, film contramo, mukkimilla. We have to be India. You will turn the pages of history, you will see India. Whether it is in Bible, whether it is in 15th century or whether it is in 16th century, why would British come to India, right? We represent this 25% of the world GDP in 16th century. Almost every wealth was in India. So everybody was coming here. The spices were in India. So when we could produce so many things, India was the top country in the world 400 years ago. And China and India were competing. The reason why is China catching up? China was the only country that could defeat India, very because of the reason that British came to India and was trying to monopolize India, right? So that's always been there. And so our strength is always that perseverance.
No, sir, can I ask something? You said we are not risk takers. I beg to differ, sir. If you take the Vedic, the Mahavakyas in the Vedas, for example, it says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am God. It's a highly risky statement and it's an outrageously courageous statement. and it has we have always been at the forefront of thought. We have been thought leaders. And if you take every Sunday Hindu newspaper, the science and technology section, you will see huge amount of research and development taking place in every Indian research institution. I think we are in the cusp of greatness, of leadership of the world. And leadership has been our tradition for thousands of years, intellectually, morally, in every respect. Only for the past 200 years, 1,000 years since Islam came to India, and for the past 200 years since Europeans conquered India, we have been on the back foot. I think now we are coming back to where we were earlier. I think we have the appetite for risk. We are fully competent of taking risk, and as you can see, many CEOs are heading Fortune 500 companies. So there is a huge ability in Indians to lead. That is, I strongly believe in what I'm saying, sir. I will be very happy if you can throw light on what I said, even if it is contradictory to what I'm saying.
No, I meant with respect to the question that came up, that we are not promoting so many entrepreneurs as other Western countries, right? So I was responding to that question within that context of what entrepreneur is defined, right? So why we are producing how many engineers every year, but how many patents are there? How many computer languages did we create? We are so eager to learn every computer language, but that was produced in the West, right? Do we have a computer language? I'm a person from computer science, right? So whenever I can master any computer science language, but we don't. The reason is we don't. It requires not only certain amount of intellectual capacity. We have to produce the best languages in the world. So we are and that's what the point I was mentioning, right? So we are a cradle of civilization. So many languages originated from India. So if we have been the ability to originate language, we should be able to originate technology also. But there are so many other factors other than that. If you want an Indian scientist or an Indian engineer, so even covaxin, take for that covaxin is originally produced vaccine. It's still not approved in the rest of the world, right? So you have to go through that approval process that's taking us down, right? It's actually a better vaccine in a sense. It emulates the actual inactivated virus, right? But it's being degraded in media, right? So the risk taking there, we didn't go for the phase 3 trial. We didn't do sufficient validation, and using that as a reason, people are putting us down, right? So yes. This has been not only in this I'm giving as a practical example from today's science, but it has been, for instance, take for the Chandrayaan failure, right? So US also sent a satellite and it also failed, right? Whenever they fail, they admit it, and then they say, okay, this failed. The Mars mission was a competent first Mars mission. They failed because they didn't do a mathematical calculation the right way. They didn't do the metric correction. But in India, we still don't know what really happened, right? So it went and it crashed, but we don't want to, we think that it was a mistake, something where we did it wrong, right? So those are the things that defines, that defines us. I'm not talking about our civilization culture in terms of religion or even spiritual enhancement, right? Buddhism is, if every scientist in the world looks up to Buddhism as the most scientific religion, because it is the first religion that defines the relationship between cause and effect. Until then, everybody was praying everything that was presented as a god, right? So Buddhism makes the turning point. So people have always appreciated the religion. What our religion difference is, Siddha approach, Sittam is mind, right? So if you take Chidambaram, it's a Sittam. It's about the concept of mapping the universe. So Andamam, Pindamam, how the connectivity between the two. So the grand Maya. So these are all kind of a mental concepts. So we can achieve that level of intellectual maturity. But what I'm talking about is at the level of on the statistical scale. When we want our children to grow up, we want them to, like Dr. Saran was mentioning, it should be an engineer or doctor, right? So we just put them on that path, because that the parents' dream is at least that basic assurance. He will find a nice bride, or a bride will find a nice groom, and then the next generation will come from it. So that is the expectation. It is not because they want to become a doctor or an engineer, but they are the yardstick that the society use to produce the next generations. So
Sir,
that
I
next
would like to
generation is the longest goal.
I would like to bring to your notice that a company called Zomato, which is a new generation company, is of a greater market cap than the Tatas and Oberois. This is a food supply service company. Then the Tata's hotel chain and the Oberoi's hotel chain, which is a highly well-established company, this has got higher market cap than that ancient, very well-established. So the entire paradigm is changing in India. The opportunities are exploding. I am telling you, the opportunities are exploding, and the youngsters are looking at things in completely different way compared to our generation. I have absolutely, I'm very, very positive about this aspect, sir. That
Yes,
are on
and
our
in the context of maturity, that's what that rigidity also comes in. So when they achieve so much, when we measure success by the money they make, that's when they may not develop the relationship with the elders, right? In fact, that was one of the issue now that Anand, the reason why this maturity concept was brought in is because once they achieve by the age of 25, they may not even want to listen to anybody else, right? Because they showed, because we are measuring yardstick with success, and that success gets measured by some kind of achievement in dollar amounts or in market cap, whatever, then we don't let them learn from the parents or from the elder generation who have gone through these phases, right? It's not that things were not so matured the things were not so rich and productive in India in the past. We know from the Tirunelveli temple, there's a $40 billion worth just lying there, right? So we were one of the most intelligently produced gem manufacturers back in 2000 years ago, right? The diamond cutting was invented in India. So the value of diamond cutting was precious back then. So at every phase of human evolution, we have always excelled. But at the same time, we also try to be compatible with the society and to listen, right, to others. The best example I would give, in fact, in the scientific community is Isaac Newton. We know him as the greatest intellect of the gravitational forces and other gravitational laws. But when he was learning, he was a student, right? So he was a student, he's breaking every other law that was there in the science, the field of science before him. And his teacher, Isaac Barrow, was teaching him all the incorrect laws, but he still followed him. He just gave him the fullest respect. So he was not denying him, he was not countering him, whatever you are teaching is wrong. So that is the intellectual maturity. So you accept what people are telling you because that is the standard of thinking that they have, right? And then you want to go above that, right? So you want to break that barrier. So one of his famous quote is, I could see further than others only because I'm standing on the shoulders of the giants. So that summarizes it. You always have to achieve the next, not without disconnecting the previous, right? So you have to accept, okay, maybe they have made a mistake, maybe, but then that compatibility is what gives us that progress and continuity. So even the idea of the heliocentric, that Earth, whether Earth goes around the sun or whether sun goes around the Earth, that's a very contradictory scientific problem that boggle like 1,500 years of period, right? The people who postulated the theory 2,000 years back, they gave excellent proof that Earth in no way can move. You cannot feel the movement of the Earth. You can be in the silent ocean. You cannot see the movement of Earth. Therefore, Earth is not moving. So philosophers agreed on it. And that was the scientific belief. And the people who were trying to question it based on shadows that planets were casting, and they were saying, maybe Earth is moving around. It's not Earth is stationary. And it took nearly 1,500 years, 1,500 years before Galileo could invent a telescope to prove it, right? So this kind of scientific breakthrough happens because you want to accept the norm and counter it, right? So the scientific progress is incremental progress over what's been done before. So what I see in younger generation now, as soon as their website is launched, as soon as they become that $1 million people, right? So they join that club and then they look down everyone else as if they're an achievement. That's not the right approach, right? It's just an illusion. That's what Buddha always says, it's an illusion of your mind. You are seeing something, and tomorrow if somebody bans it, right? Tomorrow if somebody says, we are just using the internet IP protocol and shut down all the services across the world, then everybody goes, right? So then you are still reliant on so many components of technology that others dictate. That's what is the point I'm taking. So that even the freedom of press, that's now a hot debate in India, is because we relied on Western technology of Twitter and Facebook to disseminate information, right? So we don't have, China disentangled themselves. China created their own social media companies. We rely on social media, the Western sources, and they can turn it on and off to control our expressions. So there is always somebody somewhere in kind of a checkpoint, right? So we always have to realize no matter how high we achieve, there is a limit, and that we have to maintain that continuity. And every country had that. That's the reason I was giving the example of Egypt or Greek. They were all thinking themselves as the greatest countries of the world at that time, right? So everybody goes, once they reach the cusp, then it's always the downhill. We never reach that cusp. We always try to aspire. Our aspiration has been always that way. So in no way I'm not questioning the credibility of Indian, but our mind, we are having this competition, right? One, we want to progress. Another one, we have a huge burden of the social culture with us. We have to drag that culture with us and then achieve our progress. That is the difficulty. We want to travel this scientific progress together, not alone. For American countries, for Western countries, it's a freedom, because there it's a new country, young country, people came from other parts of the world. They can break away from that tradition. They don't have to follow their languages, etc. But we cannot break our language. We cannot break our tradition. We cannot achieve progress. We don't have that liberty to disentangle ourselves from our past. Maybe our past will help us in some time, right? So that balance between preserving our past, making the progress to our future. Yeah. Let me take a break. I think I'm talking.
It's 9 o'clock now. I think we'll all take a break.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr.
Thank you.
Meyyappan, sir.
This has been a
Can I-
very engaging discussion, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. We should have.
There are quite a number of takeaways.
We
Yes.
learned a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
It was
madam.
nice
Thank
being
you.
part of this.
Thank you, Bala. Thank you, Gyan. So it's been lovely, ma'am, to listen to you, and it's a great opportunity for me to connect with all of you and make new friendships. So let's stay connected. Meyyappan sir, I have a couple of friends there. One Dr. Thirumalai, I think, is now moved out of Johns Hopkins.
Okay.
So, yeah, Dr. Ranganathan is actually in my school, so he's now teaching chemistry for us. He's, I mean, these two guys are from Johns Hopkins. So a good connection. Maybe I'll just introduce your name to them. They might know you. They've been there for a while. They just.
His full name is Meyyappan Solayappan. So.
Yes, sir.
I work
Thank
in
you,
the
everybody.
medicine
It was
campus.
nice.
Thank you, Inga. Thank
We
you.
learned a lot from each other. So that is maturing minds.
That's the idea, right?
Thank you. That is maturing
Thank you.
minds.
Thank you so much, Bala, for
Thank
putting
you,
it all together.
sir.
Thank you.
Sir. Let's
Thank
take it up further and do more such good events.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Right. I'll close the meeting now. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Janeshwar.
Bye.
Bye.